Chapter 764. The assassin also threatened, "You killed Ghost Snake. If you surrender now, I'll give you a quick death. If you put up a stubborn resistance, I have a lot of methods to torture you. When the time comes, I'm afraid you'll be begging for death." Both of them were mid-stage Yuanian cultivators. With Wang Daoyuan's strength, killing a Yuanian cultivator who didn't have any minor abilities wasn't difficult. However, it would be very difficult to deal with both of them at the same time. Although the Huang family didn't have a deep foundation, they still had 4 generations of savings. In addition, Old Master Huang was a peak Yuanian cultivator. The Huang family's heritage was definitely not weak, and they had many life-saving methods. The other person was from an assassin organization. These people spent most of their energy on assassinations, so they weren't very strong in a direct confrontation. However, with young Master Huang holding him back, and the mid-stage Yuanian assassin waiting for an opportunity to launch a sneak attack, they were still a great threat. He definitely wasn't a match for them in the air. When the time came, he would have no choice but to reveal his sword cultivation methods. If he was too obvious in the air, he could very well expose his identity. At that time, he would attract the attention of the 7 Stars Alliance and Bloodshark cultivators. However, things were different in the sea. Using the true dragon body tempering art to transform his body into a true dragon was very suitable for fighting underwater. Killing 2 mid-stage Yuanian cultivators wasn't difficult. Young Master Huang and the assassin naturally didn't know about his methods, so they didn't want him to escape into the water. The coral reef below was too complicated. Many of them were 3rd or 4th grade materials for refining tools, so they were very effective against divine sense detection. The 2 of them couldn't fly over in time, so they took out their magic tools to stop Wang Daoyuan. 2 flying swords, 1 silver and 1 black, attacked him. These 2 weren't sword cultivators, so their attacks were only SOSO. Wang Daoyuan took out his black dragon halberd. When the flying swords came close, he swung the halberd and smashed the 2 flying swords. The black jade flood dragon's horn was very strong. The 2 flying swords did not leave any marks on the surface. Instead, the 2 flying swords were sent flying. There were no more obstacles in front of Wang Daoyuan, and he went straight into the crevice of the coral reef. The 2 of them came to the place where he had entered the water. The assassin asked, "Young Master Huang, this person is very cunning. Should we stop here or go into the sea to kill him?" Young Master Huang didn't even give it a second thought. "This brat has disgraced our Huang clan. How can we let him leave just like that? You've also lost a cultivator, and you're willing to let him go just like that?" The assassin gritted his teeth and said, "I personally groomed Ghost Snake, he's like my disciple. Now that he's fallen in the hands of that kid surnamed Wu, I can't wait to skin him alive. It's just that my probing methods aren't very useful in this coral reef. This brat is also a body cultivator. If we are ambushed by him, we really won't be his match." Young Master Huang said disdainfully, "Although the heritage of my Huang family is not as good as those big forces, it is still not something that ordinary rogue cultivators can compare with. My clan's old ancestor started by hunting demonic beasts in the sea. A mere loose cultivator wants to escape by jumping into the water? Wishful thinking. So you're saying that we should go into the water together to hunt him down?" Young Master Huang smiled and said, "It's still too dangerous. I'll use some tricks to attract sharks and make him unable to stay in the sea. Then we'll wait on the flying boat. If he dares to show his face, he'll definitely die." Then he took out a jade bottle and poured out a few drops of dark red liquid. The liquid dissolved as soon as it entered the water. At this moment, Wang Daoyuan didn't run far. Instead, he hid in a coral reef at the bottom of the sea. After young Master Huang dripped a few drops of the liquid, he smelled a faint scent of blood. Previously, when he was hunting demonic beasts with the Black Ice Fairy, he saw a similar trick that could attract sharks. Being surrounded by sharks in the sea, even if they were only rank 4 sharks, was enough to kill. If a tier 5 were to appear, then there would be no way out for them. However, he didn't want to leave just like that. He was forced to leave Rare Treasures Island by the Huang family, which delayed his search for the 5 Elements essence. He wouldn't feel good if he didn't vent his anger. After floating more than 1,000 feet below the surface of the sea, he used the true dragon flight technique and flew towards the south. Using the technique at this depth, the 2 of them could still detect some movements. Young Master Huang wasn't a water element cultivator. It was almost impossible for him to pass through the countless corals and attack 1,000 feet below the surface of the sea. Naturally, the 2 of them were unwilling to let Wang Daoyuan wander around so brazenly. He steered the flying boat and lowered its altitude. The assassin condensed a few small black swords in his hand and flew towards Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan condensed a phantom dragon claw to meet the small black swords. The dragon claw was penetrated by the black swords and completely collapsed. He had no choice but to summon the black dragon halberd and swing it with all his might to smash the small black swords. Many of the corals in the surroundings were also shattered by this attack. The small black swords condensed from spiritual energy naturally couldn't withstand this attack. Under the halberd they scattered into black spiritual energy. If the two of them didn't come down, it wouldn't be a good idea to continue wasting time like this. He couldn't keep swimming in the sea. At this moment he needed to play a mind game. Wang Daoyuan used the tiger soul subduing roar technique and said, "Young Master Blood Dragon, your courage doesn't seem like Blood Dragon's son. The Blood Dragon duo is your younger brother, right? Although they're a bit weaker, they're much more courageous than you. They dare to fight me head-on. Your Yuanying middle stage cultivation has been fed to the dogs." Hearing this, young Master Huang was furious. Blood Dragon was already a taboo in the Huang family. Now he was being scolded in public. He was Master Huang's son, but now he was being scolded as Blood Dragon's son. Since he was born, the Huang family had been the third most powerful force on Rare Treasure Island. Even the Seven Stars Alliance and Blood Shark gave the Huang family some face. When had they ever been treated like this? He put away the flying boat and held the long sword in his hand. He cursed angrily, "Little bastard surnamed Wu, don't run if you have the guts. Today I'll teach you how to be a man." The assassin hurriedly tried to stop him. Young Master Huang said angrily, "Get lost." The assassin didn't dare to persuade him anymore. He could only follow behind and help. The two entered the water. Wang Daoyuan's plan succeeded. His body emitted a jade-colored light. Then he turned into a true dragon more than 10 feet long and swam toward young Master Huang. Seeing him turn into a true dragon at that, the two were surprised. The Qixing Sea Xiuxing community hadn't seen a true dragon for thousands of years. After they came to their senses, the two realized that it was stupid to fight a true dragon underwater. They wanted to escape into the air. However, Wang Daoyuan's true dragon flight technique in his dragon form was extremely fast. Moreover, they were in the sea. The two's speed couldn't be compared at all. Wang Daoyuan's target was young Master Huang. The 5th grade flying boat was in his hands. If he escaped, Wang Daoyuan wouldn't be able to catch up with him. His two front claws grabbed at young Master Huang. Young Master Huang had no other choice but to block with his sword. Wang Daoyuan grabbed the flying sword with one claw while the other claw grabbed at young Master Huang's dantian. The assassin wanted to save him. He also condensed a black dragon and attacked Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan swung his dragon tail and shattered the black dragon. A golden light appeared on young Master Huang's body. This should be his life-saving trump card. The dragon claw didn't manage to shatter it. It only made him spit out a mouthful of blood. The true dragon transformation put a lot of pressure on the body. It couldn't be maintained for long. If this continued, Wang Daoyuan would be the unlucky one. He took out his life-bound magic weapon, the Sword of Origin. The moment he took it out, it was filled with killing intent. He had such a powerful sword cultivation technique, but he had been hiding it. The two immediately realized who their opponent was. It was the sword cultivator surnamed Zhou, whom the 7 late-stage Yuanying cultivators couldn't catch in the 7 Stars Heavenly Palace. Unfortunately, they found out too late. The Sword of Origin was made from a 6th grade high-grade sword embryo. Even if the tool pattern was only 5th grade, it was still very powerful. Coupled with Wang Daoyuan's Sword of Origin, the golden light barrier was shattered in an instant. Countless sword chi rushed into young Master Huang's body. His internal organs were instantly shattered. Even the Yuanying cultivators weren't spared. Young Master Huang died on the spot. His face was still filled with fear and disbelief. Wang Daoyuan kept his corpse in the space of the spiritual pearl. Then he swung the Sword of Origin at the assassin again. Chapter 765. The assassin might not be strong enough in a head-on battle, but he was very good at hiding and escaping. He disappeared into the sea in an instant. Wang Daoyuan searched with his divine sense, but he couldn't find any trace of him. If he escaped, he would be hunted down by the 7 Stars Alliance and Blood Shark. Using his divine sense, all the spiritual energy within a 300-mile radius was under his control. No matter how good the assassin's escape technique was, it was impossible for him not to cause a disturbance. The moment he used his divine sense, he discovered that there was a strange mass of seawater about 30 miles north. His divine sense couldn't lock onto it. If it wasn't for the fact that the flow of spiritual energy in this mass of water was incompatible with the surrounding seawater, Wang Daoyuan wouldn't have noticed it. The sword of origin returning flashed with silver light as it cut through the seawater and slashed towards the assassin. The assassin knew that he was exposed, so he stopped hiding. He channeled all the black spiritual energy in his body into a long sword, wanting to take the attack head-on. In order to prevent this guy from abandoning his body and escaping, Wang Daoyuan used the Black Tortoise Purgatory. A black flame prison with a diameter of 500 feet enveloped the assassin's entire body. With a flash of silver light, the assassin's spiritual energy dissipated. The black sword in his hand broke into 2 pieces, and his head fell from his body. Yuanying flew out from the corpse, wanting to escape. Yuanying's speed was usually much faster than cultivators of the same level. If he ran far away, Wang Daoyuan wouldn't be able to stop him. Yuanying's head crashed into the Black Tortoise Purgatory and bounced back. His cultivation wasn't low, so the Black Tortoise Purgatory also trembled. The Black Tortoise Purgatory alone might not be able to trap him. The Sword of Origin returning carried a large amount of sword chi and broke into the Black Tortoise Purgatory again. Yuanying tried to dodge several times, but was still cut in half by the Sword of Origin returning. Wang Daoyuan put the assassin's corpse and Yuanying into the Spirit Pearl space. He flew to the surface of the sea and summoned his flying boat, continuing his journey towards the south. At the same time, in the middle of Rare Treasure Island's market, in a deep courtyard, an early Yuanying cultivator ran to the backyard in a panic. As soon as he entered the backyard, an old voice came from inside. "Jin Sheng, why are you so flustered?" The early Yuanying cultivator quickly said, "Father, Big Brother's soul tablet is broken." A peak-stage nascent soul cultivator with white hair and beard rushed out of a room and questioned loudly, "What did you say?" "Big Brother's soul tablet is broken." The peak Yuanying cultivator was stunned for a long time before he asked, "Where did Jin Shan go?" The early Yuanying cultivator replied, "Big Brother received a message from the cultivator guarding the city gate. The brat who stole our water essence left the city through the south gate. He led the Nether Flood Dragon to chase after that brat, and it has only been less than 4 hours since then. You bastard surnamed Wu dared to kill my son. Prepare the fastest flying boat for me. I'm going to chase after him. I want him to die without a burial place." Wang Daoyuan naturally guessed that Master Huang and the assassin organization would chase after him. In order to avoid being caught, he adjusted his direction and flew to the southeast. In the space of the spiritual pearl, his doppelganger searched through young Master Huang and the assassin's interspatial rings and found many good things. As Master Huang's eldest son, young Master Huang had many good things in his interspatial ring. Just the high-grade spirit stones alone were close to 100,000 pieces. What surprised Wang Daoyuan the most was that he also had the high-grade level 5 astral core that he bought at the auction. In addition to these things, there was also a high-grade level 5 magic longsword, as well as many nascent cultivating pills and healing pills. The level 5 flying boat that they took to come here was also here. He also had a mid-grade level 5 soft armor, but unfortunately, it was pierced through by the origin restoring sword and was basically useless. Even with Wang Daoyuan's refining skills, it would be difficult for him to repair it. Young Master Huang also hid a jade pendant, but now it was broken and its spiritual power was basically gone. This should be young Master Huang's trump card, but now it was useless. The doppelganger casually threw the astral core, and the astral core automatically floated above the center of the spiritual pearl, absorbing the purple energy and converting it into star energy. Soon the astral core began to emit star energy. Moreover, the amount of star energy was much more than the astral core that he obtained in Beiyuan. There were no cultivation techniques or spells in the assassin's interspatial ring, but there were more than 30,000 high-grade spirit stones. There were also some pills, but not many. There was also a token, similar to Ghost Snake's token, with the words Hell Flood Dragon carved on the back. The doppelganger checked the level 5 flying boat and did not find any problems. Wang Daoyuan also changed to the level 5 flying boat, which was indeed much faster. With this, he was not afraid of Master Huang catching up. There was a distance of millions of miles from here to the myriad demon islands. In order to save spirit stones, most of the merchant ships relied on cultivators to drive the flying boats, and they had to stop and rest along the way. Wang Daoyuan had the spiritual gathering pearl and the spatial ring, so he did not need to resupply. From the south of Rare Treasure Island, the Blood Shark Pirates' territory was nearly 500,000 miles. Since he was wanted by the 3 major forces, Wang Daoyuan did not dare to look for trouble, and tried his best to avoid the island. After taking many detours, it took more than half a month to reach the southern edge of the Sea of 7 Stars. At this time, Master Huang had already returned to Rare Treasure Island. He was not prepared enough, and chased south for more than 300,000 miles, but he could not find Wang Daoyuan's trace. The high-grade spirit stones he carried were barely enough for the return trip. If he continued to chase, he could only rely on himself to drive the flying boat back. Helplessly, he could only give up the chase and return in exasperation. Wang Daoyuan met many cultivators on the way, but to be able to own a level 5 flying boat, he was definitely not an ordinary rogue cultivator, so no one dared to provoke him. The journey was quite peaceful, and he did not meet any cultivators blocking his way. At the edge of the Sea of Seven Stars, south was the territory of the demonic beasts. In order to avoid being targeted by the demonic beasts, Wang Daoyuan tried his best to fly the flying boat as high as possible. There were often clouds on the sea, and hiding in the clouds could save him a lot of trouble. Even so, he met many demonic beasts along the way. Killing a level 4 demonic beast that was courting death was not much effort. Level 5 demonic beasts would be a little troublesome, and he might even be chased by a group of demonic beasts. Fortunately, the demonic beasts in the sea were not very fast and did not cause too much damage. After more than half a year of trekking, he arrived at the northernmost tip of the Myriad Demon Islands. Although the Myriad Demon Islands did not have a large island like the Sea of Seven Stars, it was still common to see islands with a radius of thousands of miles. Wang Daoyuan arrived at the Fire Lotus Island, which was a medium-sized island with a diameter of over 7,000 miles. There were many volcanoes on this island, and these volcanoes formed a lotus shape. On the Fire Lotus Island, there was a level 6 low-grade fire spiritual vein, as well as many level 5 fire spiritual veins. The scale of these spiritual veins was not big, and they were all deep underground. Moreover, these volcanoes produced many fire attribute materials, which attracted many cultivators. The Fire Lotus Island was not small, and there were high-grade spiritual veins. Moreover, it was located at the northernmost tip of the Myriad Demon Islands. In addition to the large number of cultivators, it became the place where the Myriad Demon Islands and the Sea of Seven Stars traded. At the northern end of the Fire Lotus Island, there was a large-scale market. Occasionally, there would be large flying boats coming from the Sea of Seven Stars to trade here. On the island, there were also shops opened by Blood Shark and the Seven Stars Alliance. They were used to sell the resources in the southern part of the Sea of Seven Stars. At the same time, they would also buy spiritual items from the Myriad Demon Islands and send them back. Of course, the Seven Stars Alliance and Blood Shark's forces here were already very weak. Most of the people in the northern part of the Myriad Demon Islands were cultivators who were ostracized by the two major powers. The shops of the two major powers did not dare to be too arrogant in case they were destroyed. Wang Daoyuan naturally came here for the Li Fire Essence. There were many volcanoes and fire attribute spiritual veins here, so the possibility of the Li Fire Essence appearing was very high. There were more rogue cultivators of the righteous path here, and fewer devil cultivators. He would not be conspicuous among them. He knew nothing about the Myriad Demon Islands, so he naturally wanted to find a place to scout for information. Wang Daoyuan entered the market at the northern end of the island. The scale of this market was not small, and it had a radius of over 100 miles. He strolled around the market and soon found a restaurant. The name was very familiar, Kai Yang Restaurant. Chapter 766. The owner of the Kai Yang Restaurant was the Kai Yang sect, which was located on one of the 7 big islands, the Kai Yang Island. Although the Kai Yang sect didn't monopolize a big island like the Alioth Sword sect, there were soul formation cultivators in the sect, so they weren't weak. The Kai Yang sect's inheritances were very diverse, such as pill, artifact, talisman arrays, sword cultivation, body cultivation, and so on. There were even inheritances of spirit chefs, but none of them were particularly strong. If the Rising Sun sect was best at business, it would still be business. As long as there was an island with a market, there would be shops of the Kai Yang sect. The market of the Fire Lotus Island wasn't small, so the Kai Yang sect was naturally there. After entering the Kai Yang restaurant, he found an empty table and sat down. The waiter quickly asked, "Senior, what would you like to order?" Wang Daoyuan said casually, "Give me some of your best dishes and 2 jars of good wine." The waiter quickly served the dishes. The ingredients were local, mainly demon beast meat, and a small amount of fire attribute spirit herbs. The wine was also good. The ingredients were 4th-grade spirit herbs that had been stored in the cellar for hundreds of years and had barely broken through to the 5th grade. Wang Daoyuan ate and drank while listening to the cultivators around him. Most of the rogue cultivators didn't have a tomorrow, and they all liked to enjoy themselves. There were many rich people drinking in the restaurant. At the table next to him, there was a middle-stage Yuanian cultivator in a blue robe drinking by himself. Not long after, another white-bearded cultivator walked into the shop. Seeing this blue-robed cultivator, he quickly walked over. "Brother Bai, it's really you. We haven't seen each other for many years since we parted on Cloud Island. I didn't expect to meet you here today. Back then you also established a force and lived a good life. Why are you here too?" The blue-robed cultivator smiled bitterly. "Brother Gao, let's not talk about the past. I can't stay in the Sea of Seven Stars anymore, so I can only come to the myriad demon islands to make a living. Brother, you've been here for many years, I wonder if you can give me some guidance?" The white-bearded cultivator smiled. "What kind of guidance can there be on the Fire Lotus Island? It's nothing more than going out to sea to hunt. Other than demon beasts, there are also some low-intelligence fierce beasts. These fellows' physical bodies were far superior to other beasts of the same level, but their intelligence was far inferior, making them easier to kill. The further south they went, the more ferocious beasts there were and the fewer demonic beasts there were. There were many volcanoes on the Fire Lotus Island, and there were also many fire-attributed materials. As long as they dared to enter the lava lake, they would definitely be able to reap some rewards. If he was lucky enough to find some precious refining materials, he would be able to earn a lot of spirit stones. When I first arrived here, someone found a 6th-grade fire essence in the lava under the volcano. I heard that it was sold for over 100,000 high-grade spirit stones. Upon hearing this, Wang Daoyuan's ears perked up. This was exactly the news he wanted. Cultivators were similar to ordinary people in that they liked to brag after drinking. Hearing this white-bearded cultivator talk about the leaf fire essence, the other insiders also started to brag. A sturdy cultivator said, "This is Dao Yu, the one who found the leaf fire essence, and we are old acquaintances. Back then, when I was on this Fire Lotus Island, that Dao Yu invited me to go down to the lava lake of the Blood Flame Mountain. However, there were often high-grade 5th-grade ferocious beasts in the lava lake. I was afraid that it would be dangerous, so I didn't go. I didn't expect that I would miss out on a fortune. So, everything is fate and it's not up to people." A cultivator next to him joked, "You don't have that fate, so it's useless even if you go. The Blood Flame Mountain is located in the center of the Fire Lotus Island and has a 6th-grade spirit vein. Maybe you won't be able to get the leaf fire essence, and you might even be eaten by demonic beasts. Anyway, it's a good thing that you didn't get rich. That Dao Yu seemed to have been assassinated not long after selling the leaf fire essence." The other cultivators also started to discuss the leaf fire essence, and Wang Daoyuan learned a lot of information from them. It seemed that his luck was pretty good. He had just arrived here and he already had news of the leaf fire essence. However, knowing this news didn't mean that he would be able to obtain the leaf fire essence. The Blood Flame Mountain had a 6th-grade spirit vein, so the flames in the lava must be extremely powerful. Yuanian cultivators couldn't stay for too long after entering, not to mention that there might be high-grade 5th-grade ferocious beasts roaming around. Once they were entangled by ferocious beasts, it would be difficult to escape. Listening to these people's conversations, there were quite a few Yuanian cultivators who had died in the lava lake. However, he wasn't satisfied with obtaining such accurate information without investigating. That year, that cultivator had obtained the leaf fire essence. As long as there were some remnants left, it would be enough for Wang Daoyuan. It would be able to slowly grow after fusing with the fire spirit vein. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, he left the market and headed to the center of the Fire Lotus Island. From the market to the center of the island, the scenery in front of him changed drastically. The air was filled with dense fire spirit energy, and there were very few plants on the ground. Only a few fire attribute spirit plants were growing more luxuriantly. Wang Daoyuan also casually picked some valuable spirit plants and transplanted them into the space of the spirit pearl. Along the way, he didn't encounter any ferocious beasts blocking his way and soon arrived at the Blood Flame Mountain. This volcano wasn't big, only about 5 kilometers in diameter and less than 3 kilometers tall. There were quite a few Yuanian cultivators cultivating around the small mountain. After all, it was a rank 6 spirit vein, and the density of spirit energy was extremely high. Fire attribute cultivators cultivating here would be able to achieve twice the results with half the effort. Of course, other than cultivating here, these people also had the intention to take advantage of the situation. If a cultivator managed to gain something from the volcano, they would gang up on him. If a ferocious beast escaped from the volcano, it would also be surrounded and attacked. Regardless of the situation, these people would be able to gain a lot without paying a huge price. Wang Daoyuan didn't know much about the Blood Flame Mountain, so he naturally wouldn't enter the mouth of the volcano. He followed the other cultivators and found a place near the Blood Flame Mountain to meditate and cultivate. There was a mid-stage Yuanian cultivator nearby. When he saw Wang Daoyuan cultivating nearby, he mocked, "A mere early-stage Yuanian cultivator dares to come here and join in the fun. This is my territory. If you want to cultivate here, you have to pay 10,000 high-grade spirit stones. Otherwise your little life will end here." This person was tall and muscular. He was clearly a body refiner. Moreover, there was a strong smell of blood on his body. He was clearly a demonic cultivator of the blood demon tribe. Wang Daoyuan didn't take this demonic cultivator seriously. "Your territory? How did you divide the territory near the Blood Flame Mountain?" The demonic cultivator looked disdainful. "Of course I took it with my own ability." Wang Daoyuan looked enlightened. "Then that's easy. This territory belongs to me now. You can either scram or die." If he wanted to enter the lava lake in the Blood Flame Mountain to search for treasures, he had to establish his dominance first so that others wouldn't dare to attack him. This demonic cultivator had delivered himself to his doorstep. It was a good choice. This demonic cultivator was naturally not a good-tempered person. Now that Wang Daoyuan was so arrogant and didn't take him seriously, how could he tolerate this? He took out a heavy sword and slashed at Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan also took out his black dragon halberd and swung it at the demonic cultivator. The sword and halberd clashed, producing an ear-piercing sound. The two of them had similar physical strength, so they both retreated. However, the black dragon halberd was refined from the black jade flood dragon's spine and dragon horn, so it carried the power of a dragon. Demonic cultivators were afraid of heavenly might and divine beasts, so they were at a disadvantage. An early-stage Yuanian cultivator had the upper hand against a mid-stage Yuanian cultivator in a head-on confrontation. All the cultivators present thought highly of Wang Daoyuan. No one wanted to attack him anymore. This demonic cultivator wasn't weak, so it wouldn't be easy to take him down. Others might even take advantage of him. After successfully establishing his dominance, Wang Daoyuan didn't attack anymore. He meditated on the spot and looked for an opportunity to enter the volcano. He stayed there for half a month. Every day there would be cultivators entering the volcano to try their luck. On this day the sound of fierce fighting constantly came from the volcano. Soon, a mid-stage Yuanian cultivator escaped from the volcano, followed by a blood-red lizard. Chapter 767. Every time something like this happened, the cultivators around the Bloodfire Mountain would stare at the escaping cultivator with their eyes wide open. If this person was injured or had a good harvest, they would gang up on him. If he wasn't injured or had a good harvest, they would gang up on him and kill the demon beast. This time was no exception. Everyone was looking at the mid-stage Yuanian cultivator. Although this mid-stage Yuanian cultivator was in a sorry state, he was full of vitality and his spirit power was stable. He wasn't seriously injured. Wang Daoyuan couldn't tell if he had a good harvest or not. The other cultivators, on the other hand, carefully inspected the cultivator before revealing looks of disappointment. They were all old foxes. They were disappointed because they saw that this person didn't have a good harvest. Of course, they couldn't let go of the lizard that chased them out. Even the most worthless meat of a mid-stage fifth-stage demon beast could be used for cultivation. With a few mid-stage Yuanian cultivators attacking together, a beast of the same stage couldn't resist and was quickly divided. The golden core of the beast was snatched away by a sword cultivator. Beasts and demons were different from humans. They didn't have Yuaniing. Even after breaking through to the fifth stage, the core of their spirit power was still the golden core. However, the price of a fifth-stage demon beast's golden core was very high. Other than being used for alchemy, it could also be used as a material for forming Yuaniing. If it was in Beiyuan, a mid-stage fifth-stage demon beast's golden core could be used as a source of fifth-stage spirit power. When Taoist Lei Yen broke his core to form his nascent soul, his corpse core was similar to the golden core of this beast. Wang Daoyuan didn't care about this. The nascent formation fruit he obtained in the 7-star secret realm was already a foot tall and had 5 buds. In 5,000 years he would be able to use the nascent formation fruit. The flow of time in the spirit pearl was already 70 times faster than the outside world and was still accelerating. He estimated that the nascent formation fruit would ripen in another 50 to 60 years. The medicinal effect of this fruit wasn't something a fifth-stage golden core could compare to. After the demonic beast was killed, the cultivator who escaped from the crater panted for a long time before he slowly said, "Thank you Dao Yu for your help. I found a piece of refining material below. I haven't even made a move yet, and this beast has already set its sights on me." A middle-stage Yuanian cultivator beside him asked, "The materials used to refine this weapon must be extraordinary to have a fifth-order mid-grade demonic beast guarding it." The cultivator shook his head. "I didn't even have time to check before I was ambushed by this beast. That thing's spiritual energy fluctuations are extremely strong. It should be a sixth-grade material." Hearing this, everyone's interest was immediately piqued. Any random piece of a sixth-tier crafting material would be worth tens of thousands of high-grade spirit stones. The volcano crater of the Bloodfire Mountain had once produced level 6 low-grade leaf fire essence. The young cultivator asked again, "Where?" The cultivator who escaped did not hide anything. The southernmost part of the lava lake, 2,000 feet below the lava. The lava lake near a level 6 low-grade spirit vein had extremely strong flames. Yuanian cultivators would still be in great danger if they went down. Many cultivators would be burned to ashes before they could even reach the depth of 2,000 feet. Hearing this, some of the cultivators revealed hesitant expressions. However, there were many wandering cultivators who valued money more than their lives. Moreover, wandering cultivators who could cultivate to the Yuanian realm all had life-saving methods. After a few dozen breaths of hesitation, about 20 cultivators flew to the crater of the volcano. They used all kinds of life-saving methods and jumped into the crater. These cultivators were the majority of the cultivators around the Bloodfire Mountain. Wang Daoyuan had long wanted to enter the crater of the volcano to search for the leaf fire essence. However, there were too many cultivators waiting to take advantage of the situation, so he didn't dare to casually go down. Now was an excellent opportunity. He also flew to the crater of the volcano, wrapped himself in the black tortoise purgatory, and jumped into the lava lake. He was no stranger to lava. Back then, when he cultivated the Scarlet Wand fire resistance escape on the Jade Spring Peak, he cultivated in the lava. However, the fire spiritual energy in the Jade Spring Peak's lava was only at the level of a level 3 high-grade fire spirit vein. It was far inferior to the lava here. Wang Daoyuan still underestimated the power of the level 6 low-grade lava. The black tortoise purgatory on his body was quickly consumed, and soon a hole appeared. Even if he tried his best to replenish his spiritual energy, he still couldn't keep up with the consumption of the lava. He could only release the Scarlet Yang primordial fire and wrap it around the black tortoise purgatory. With the Scarlet Yang primordial fire consuming the fire spiritual energy in the lava, the pressure on the black tortoise purgatory decreased by a lot. Wang Daoyuan extracted spiritual energy from the Scarlet Yang primordial fire, converted it into water-attributed spiritual energy, and replenished the black tortoise purgatory. However, the deeper he went, the stronger the flames in the lava became. He definitely couldn't take out the black magic robe. The wings of a half-step Yuanian black winged demon were only level 4 high-grade refining materials. In the flames they would be burned to ashes in an instant. The robe on his body made of level 5 low-grade beast skin could barely hold on in the flames. Other than the flames, there was also an extremely strong pressure. The density of the lava was much higher than that of water. In the lava, the pressure on the body was naturally greater than in water. He had just gone down more than 1,000 feet when he heard the sounds of fighting coming from below. The spiritual energy fluctuations were also very intense. Moreover, the spiritual energy fluctuations didn't seem to be from demonic beasts, but more like a battle between humans. In such a situation, there was an 80% chance that someone found something good and it was seen by others. With the character of this group of rogue cultivators, they would naturally snatch it. Wang Daoyuan didn't want to get involved in this muddy water and continued to stay more than 1,000 feet deep. The flames of the lava below were even stronger, and the pressure on the body was also greater. Even if he didn't fight, he couldn't stay down for long. Now, this group of people still had to fight each other, and the time they could last was even shorter. When the cultivators below were tired of fighting, they would naturally come up. It was just right for him to wait here. The situation wasn't out of Wang Daoyuan's expectations. The situation below was getting more and more lively. In less than half a cup of tea's time, they began to escape upwards. He also took out the level 5 high-grade sword he got from young Master Huang, ready to ambush them at any time. Soon, a mid-stage Yuanian cultivator escaped from below. This person was the demonic cultivator who caused trouble for him before. He didn't expect that this guy would be the first to get the spiritual item below. Previously, he attacked him and now he stole his item. It was a good time to settle the old and new scores together. In this lava lake, he had to use spiritual energy to protect himself, and there was no way to hide his tracks. The demonic cultivator also discovered his tracks. There was no need to hide anymore. Wang Daoyuan's hands turned into dragon claws and grabbed at the demonic cultivator. His whole body was emitting dragon chi and an extremely strong dragon might. The demonic cultivator was extremely sensitive to these things and felt a wave of fear. In addition, he had used up a lot of his spiritual energy after fighting with the other cultivators below. Now that there were people chasing after him, he naturally didn't dare to fight with Wang Daoyuan. He didn't have time to cast spells to resist the flames. He directly turned into a bloody light and flew up. His speed was extremely fast. He must have used a secret technique that consumed his blood essence and true essence. Wang Daoyuan didn't want to risk his life, so he just followed behind unhurriedly. With Dahei's keen sense of smell, this guy couldn't escape Wang Daoyuan's detection unless he could escape thousands of miles away in an instant. Even if he escaped, the aura he left behind would expose his whereabouts. He definitely wouldn't be able to escape in a battle of attrition. The cultivators below also hurriedly followed. An old cultivator saw Wang Daoyuan and asked, "Did you see that blood demon demonic cultivator?" "Yes, I saw him. I was about to attack when he turned into a bloody light and fled. My cultivation level is low, so I didn't dare to take the lava's fire head-on, so I didn't dare to chase after him. What good thing did this guy get? Why are there so many people chasing after him?" The old cultivator didn't answer. He used a secret technique and followed. However, a cultivator behind him said, "I only saw an extremely powerful fire attribute spiritual energy fluctuation. It should be a 6th-tier material. According to the senior in front, it's the essence of fire." The other cultivators no longer paid attention to Wang Daoyuan and sped up to catch up. Chapter 768. A depth of more than 10,000 feet was nothing to Yuanian cultivators who were rushing at full speed. Everyone quickly chased after him, and Wang Daoyuan followed closely behind. When they exited the volcano, they discovered that the blood demon had already escaped. At that moment, the cultivators running in front had already chased south for dozens of kilometers. The blood-colored light that the demonic cultivator had transformed into had already fled to somewhere unknown. Everyone still chased after him relentlessly. One of the cultivators even summoned a bat demon beast to track the blood demon. Wang Daoyuan was already prepared to take advantage of the situation, so he naturally followed. That demonic cultivator was a mid-stage Yuanian cultivator who walked the path of body refinement, so he had more blood essence and quintessential essence. Using this secret technique, he could fly for thousands of kilometers. The group followed behind the bat demon beast and chased south. Soon, everyone arrived at the edge of the island. The bat no longer flew forward, but circled above a small area of the sea. The blood demon was not stupid. He knew that he would not have any advantage if he kept running, so he fled into the sea in an attempt to use the water to escape. The demonic cultivator burned his blood essence and quintessential essence to escape thousands of kilometers away. He was now in a half-dead state. Even if he entered the sea, he would not be able to escape too far. Naturally, everyone was unwilling to give up and stayed by the shore. They were unwilling to use their trump cards so easily. They wanted to wait for the others to leave before taking the benefits for themselves. This stalemate lasted for a while, but no one left. An old cultivator summoned a water-type snake-type demon beast. This stalemate is not a solution. Everyone, Daoyu, don't hide anymore. Use your methods to find this demonic cultivator. My jade wave snake is good at searching for targets in the water. Its speed in the water is even faster than that of an average mid-stage Yuanian cultivator. With that, he summoned the jade wave snake. This snake was only about 3 feet long and covered in light green scales. It did not look special, but it emitted high-grade level 4 spiritual power fluctuations. After the jade wave snake entered the water, it quickly swam south. The other cultivators who had underwater searching methods also used their methods to search for the demonic cultivator in the sea. Soon, 3 cultivators locked onto the demonic cultivator's position. The master of the blue wave serpent said, "Daoyu, the 3 of us have found traces of the devil cultivator. We can't waste our efforts, can we?" Wang Daoyuan said, "There are more than 20 of us here. No one can take all the benefits. If the devil cultivator really obtained the Li fire essence, then it wasn't impossible to separate them. Instead of fighting, it was better to share the benefits. Daoyu have contributed more, so you can take more." Although he needed a lot of Li fire essence, he had the space in the spirit pearl. As long as a small piece of Li fire essence was integrated into the fire spiritual vein, it could slowly grow. It would be most beneficial for him to split a piece each. The master of the jade wave serpent smiled and said, "Daoyu's suggestion is not bad. If all the other Daoyu agree, I have no objections." The other cultivators nodded as well. Under such circumstances, no one could take all the treasures for themselves. Instead of fighting to the death and possibly gaining nothing, it was better to quit while they were ahead. At this moment, a middle-stage Yuanying cultivator wearing a black robe looked at Wang Daoyuan with disdain. The idea is good, but you're just an early-stage Yuanying cultivator. What right do you have to share the treasures with us? If we kill you, won't there be one less person to share the treasures with? The others also looked at him with ill intentions. He was the only early-stage Yuanying cultivator present. Since he also wanted to share the treasures, the others were somewhat unhappy. Wang Daoyuan nodded. You're right. If we kill the weak, there will be one less person to share the treasures with. Before he finished speaking, his hands had already turned into dragon claws and attacked the black-robed cultivator. The two of them were only 100 feet apart. He had no time to dodge Wang Daoyuan's sudden attack. He could only take out a mid-grade Tier 5 sword and inject spirit energy into it. A spirit energy barrier appeared around his body to block the attack. Wang Daoyuan grabbed the sword with one of his dragon claws while the other went straight for the black-robed cultivator's heart. With a scream, the spirit energy barrier shattered and a large hole appeared in the black-robed cultivator's chest. The black-robed cultivator was also very decisive. He immediately abandoned his physical body and fled into the distance with Yuanying. The others were still gloating and had mocking smiles on their faces. Now their smiles froze on their faces and they were stunned. This Yuanying was extremely fast. Ordinary spells would not be able to catch up. He had used the Black Tortoise Purgatory in the 7-star secret realm. With so many people present, it would not be good to use it again. Intense metal-type spirit energy fluctuations appeared on his body. Then, 300 golden feathers appeared out of thin air. Under his control, the 300 feathers left his body and chased after the Yuanying. The feather blade speed had always been extremely fast. They were even faster than a sword cultivator's sword control. The black-robed cultivator's chances of escaping with Yuanying were slim. He did not wait for death. Burning his true essence, he cast a spell and condensed the shadow of a black tortoise. This tortoise shadow was similar to the black tortoise. Its defensive ability was not weak. A few feather blades hit it and shattered into golden powder. The tortoise did not move at all. Wang Daoyuan gathered the remaining 200 feather blades and attacked a single point. The tortoise shadow collapsed instantly. The remaining 100 feather blades turned into a tornado and attacked Yuanying. A golden light flashed and Yuanying disappeared instantly. Wang Daoyuan recalled the remaining feather blades and infused spirit energy into his body again. He smiled and asked, "Now I can take 2 portions. Who agrees and who disagrees?" The people who were gloating earlier had a trace of fear on their faces. They quietly distanced themselves from Wang Daoyuan. He could directly kill Yuanying. He was too much of a threat to them. Once the sneak attack succeeded, they would not even have the chance to seize the body. The master of the blue wave serpent smiled and said, "Daoyu, speak with your strength. I have no objection to you taking 2 portions. That demonic cultivator is now hiding in a sea mountain 500 miles south. There seems to be a protective array there. He is hiding in it to recover his injuries. Let's go take him down and then divide the treasures." The others also agreed. After discussing, the group came to a place 500 miles south of the Fire Lotus Island and went into the water. Under the guidance of the 3 people, the group quickly found the sea mountain and the place where the demonic cultivator was hiding. Wang Daoyuan waved his hand and shot out more than 10 golden feathers. The array set up by the demonic cultivator was directly broken. This array was brilliant. In addition to resisting the pressure of the sea, it also had traces of an illusion array that could conceal one's whereabouts. Now that the array was broken, the demonic cultivator no longer hid. He held a fiery red crystal that was 1 foot and 4 inches long and 5 inches in diameter. As soon as he saw this thing, Wang Daoyuan's face lit up. It was indeed the Li Fire essence. The demonic cultivator said, "I can hand it over, but you have to let me live. Otherwise, I'd rather destroy this thing. If the Li Fire essence turns into fragments, it won't be worth anything." Before he could finish his words, several cultivators had already made their move. Anyway, they were going to be separated. It didn't matter whether it was fragments or not. Wang Daoyuan didn't dare to fall behind. He didn't want to be criticized again when they divided the treasures. In less than a breath's time, the body of the demonic cultivator lay on the ground. Even Yuanying was cut in half by a sword cultivator. The Li Fire essence was intact and was still in the hands of the demonic cultivator. Everyone wanted to take it, but they didn't dare to do it for fear of being besieged. Wang Daoyuan smiled and said, Let the 3 Daoyu who found the traces of the demonic cultivator divide it. We have a total of 24 people. The 3 Daoyu and I will take 2 portions. This leaf fire essence should be divided into 28 portions. Daoyu and I will take half an inch each. The 3 Daoyu and I will take 1 inch each. The way he killed the black-robed cultivator in an instant had shocked everyone. His idea was fair, so no one dared to refute. The master of the blue wave snake walked to the corpse of the demonic cultivator and picked up the leaf fire essence. He took out a long sword and began to divide it. First, he cut off 4-inch-long sections of the leaf fire essence. Wang Daoyuan and the 3 cultivators each took a section. The remaining 1-foot-long section was divided into 20 sections. The other cultivators each took a section. Chapter 769. After obtaining the leaf fire essence, Wang Daoyuan didn't stay any longer and left the sea. He had already obtained 4 of the 5 elements essence. The remaining E-wood essence definitely wouldn't be on the Fire Lotus Island. There was no point in staying here. Moreover, there were many cultivators who knew that he had the leaf fire essence. If he continued to stay on the Fire Lotus Island, it was inevitable that someone would try to rob him. It was better to leave this place as soon as possible and look for the E-wood essence elsewhere. The other cultivators didn't have the courage to rob him after witnessing his means. They just watched him leave. No one dared to stop him. After flying out of the sea, he took out a mid-grade Tier 4 flying boat and headed south. He only obtained a mid-grade Tier 5 sword and a few pills from the cultivator who provoked him. There weren't many spirit stones, only a little more than 10,000. His net worth was a far cry from young Master Huang's. However, he did have a cultivation technique and a few spells in his universe ring. This cultivation technique was called the Mystic Turtle Sea Suppression Art. It could be cultivated to the peak of Yuanying. It was much better than the Overturned Sea Art. Wang Daoyuan had the inheritance of Guiyuan Sword Immortal and was also a knowledgeable person. He could see many brilliant things from this cultivation technique, but there were also some very shallow contents. It should be a remnant of a brilliant cultivation technique that was improved by someone who obtained it. This cultivation technique was useless to him, but it could be used as a foundation for his family. The spells were ordinary. The spell that the cultivator used to protect his body with the help of the turtle phantom was called the Mystic Turtle Protective Spell. The defensive power of this spell wasn't bad, but the other spells weren't worth looking at. He put the leaf fire essence into the space of the spiritual pearl and connected it with the fire attribute spirit vein crystal. After a few decades or 100 years, they should be able to fuse together. The leaf fire essence would provide high-grade spirit energy to the spirit vein and help it to evolve. At the same time, it would absorb part of the spirit energy in the spirit vein and produce new leaf fire essence. However, this fire spirit vein was only of low-grade Tier 5. Even if the leaf fire essence could continue to grow, the new leaf fire essence would only be of low-grade Tier 5. The Gui water essence he obtained previously had already fused with the water attribute spirit vein. With the addition of a large piece of 5th-grade high-grade Gui water essence, the grade of the entire spirit vein showed signs of increasing. There was a spirit spring near the water spirit vein, but the amount of water coming out of the spirit spring was very small. Wang Daoyuan had broken through to Yuanying, and his spirit meridians had advanced, so the amount of water in the spirit spring had also increased slightly. However, it was still not very big. Inky jade lotus, yellow spring willow and 7-leaf ghost face flower were planted near the spring. The water that gushed out was all absorbed by the spirit plants. But that wasn't enough. He still needed the clone to cast a water-type spell to replenish the water. Now that he had merged with the Gui water essence, the amount of water gushing out of the spring water continued to increase. It was already enough to sustain the growth of the spiritual plants. If it continued to grow, the spirit plants might not be able to completely consume the spring water, and the spring water would flow everywhere. This spring water was the same as the Gui water nether spring north of the mountains in Beiyuan Xiuxian. It carried a dense yin qi. Ordinary spirit plants wouldn't be able to withstand this. In the future he really had to find a way to solve the problem of the spring water. The hepta gold essence had merged with the metal spirit vein earlier, and now the metal spirit vein was very close to mid-grade Tier 5. In addition, the Grand Unity golden flame beside the metal spirit vein was also affected and showed signs of advancing. This was a pleasant surprise. He didn't expect the 5 elements essence to be able to make up for the innate deficiency of the spirit fire. Wang Daoyuan sat on the flying boat and flew south. Along the way he didn't encounter any inhabited islands, only some reefs or extremely small islands. These small islands didn't even have spirit veins, so Wang Daoyuan naturally didn't stop. After all, Uncle Zhong was a cultivator of the Wen clan in Mystic Island, and Mystic Island was too far away from the myriad demon islands. The Wen clan's hands couldn't reach the myriad demon islands, and the beast skin book he gave was also very brief. There was only a rough location and there weren't any records of the larger islands. Wang Daoyuan was like a headless fly, looking for islands where he could inquire about information. After flying for more than 200,000 miles, 2 high-grade Tier 4 flying boats appeared in front of him. Just as Wang Daoyuan wanted to dodge, the 2 flying boats flanked him from the left and right. There was an early-stage Yuanying cultivator standing at the bow of the 2 flying boats. One of the plump cultivators shouted, "Who are you? Why are you trespassing in the territory of the Golden Sand Sect?" Wang Daoyuan didn't put these 2 flying boats in his eyes. If he really wanted to fight, it would only take a few moves. However, he couldn't just fly around aimlessly like this. It wasn't easy to meet a living person, so it was better to ask about the situation. He cupped his hands towards the 2 people and said, "Fire Lotus Island's rogue cultivator Wu Chuan greets the 2 Daoyu. I offended a few experts in the Fire Lotus Island, so I had no choice but to flee. I don't know much about the situation south of the Fire Lotus Island, so I accidentally trespassed in your territory. Please forgive me, Daoyu." The cultivator on the other flying boat was thinner and weaker. He said, "Do you have any proof that you accidentally trespassed in the territory of the Golden Sand Sect? Recently, there have been demonic cultivators and half-demons targeting the Golden Sand Sect. You might be a demonic cultivator or half-demon spy since you suddenly trespassed in our territory." These 2 fellows were also difficult to deal with. Explanations wouldn't work. He took out his black dragon halberd and his spirit power surged, ready to attack at any time. "I'm only here to find a safe place to stay. I've never even heard of the Golden Sand Sect, so I have no ill intentions towards you. Since your sect doesn't welcome me, I'll just leave. If the 2 Daoyu force me, then I'll have no choice but to send you on your way." The spirit power fluctuations on Wang Daoyuan's body were extraordinary, and he was a body refinement cultivator. The 2 Golden Sand Sect cultivators didn't dare to act rashly. The fat cultivator asked telepathically, "Second Elder, how should we deal with this? If we fight, the 2 of us might not be able to take him down." The thin cultivator thought for a moment and replied telepathically, "This person cultivates a righteous cultivation method and doesn't have obvious demonic characteristics. He shouldn't be a demonic cultivator or half-demon. If he's really a wandering cultivator like he said, we can try to rope him in. The sect's current situation isn't good. The sect master has been recruiting and expanding his strength. If the sect can have another powerful Yuanying cultivator, it'll also increase the sect's strength. If the 2 of us go back, we might be able to get a lot of rewards." The 2 of them thought it was worth it. The fat cultivator smiled. "Wu Daoyu, don't be impatient. We don't have any ill intentions. It's just that demonic cultivators and half-demons are rampant, so we have to be careful. Since Daoyu isn't a demonic cultivator or half-demon, the Golden Sand Sect naturally won't attack you. It's just that the sect is short of manpower. The 2 of us want to invite Daoyu to join the Golden Sand Sect. As long as Daoyu agrees, the nascent cultivating pills will be given out on time. You'll definitely be able to become an elder." Wang Daoyuan wanted to find a safe place to inquire about the location of the E-Wood essence. From what the 2 of them said, the Golden Sand Sect shouldn't be a large sect. At most, it should have a mid-late Yuanying cultivator overseeing it. There was no harm in going to the Golden Sand Sect and asking for information. However, before that, he needed to get some information. Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands and said, "May I ask how powerful your sect is?" The 2 of them were delighted by his question. He was interested in joining them. The thin cultivator quickly replied, "There are 4 Yuanying cultivators in the sect. The sect master is a mid-Yuanying cultivator and isn't far from reaching the late Yuanying stage. The Grand Elder is also a mid-Yuanying cultivator. He's in charge of all the sect's affairs, big or small. I'm Xie Qin, the 2nd Elder of the Golden Sand Sect. This is Du Zhe, the 3rd Elder of the Golden Sand Sect. With Daoyu's strength, if he joins the Golden Sand Sect, he'll be able to become the 4th Elder immediately. Although the Golden Sand Sect isn't very powerful, it's still the most powerful sect within a radius of 200,000 kilometers. Being an elder in the sect is much better than being a wandering cultivator." Chapter 770. Upon hearing this, Wang Daoyuan felt relieved. If what these 2 said was true, then the Golden Sand Sect was indeed just a small sect. 2 mid-stage Yuanying and 2 late-stage Yuanying wouldn't pose a threat to his life. If he exposed his identity as a sword cultivator, it might be difficult for him to fight 4 people at once. However, if he retreated unscathed, injuring 1 or 2 people along the way wouldn't be a problem. As long as he didn't enter the other party's sect, there wouldn't be any danger. According to what these two said, the Golden Sand sect should be a righteous sect that was enemies with demonic cultivators and half-demons. The myriad demon islands was similar to the southern wasteland of Beiyuan Xiuxian. The spirit chi here was somewhat violent and wasn't suitable for righteous cultivators to cultivate. On the contrary, demonic cultivators and half-demons were more suitable for such an environment. Righteous cultivators below the golden core stage probably couldn't leave the protection of the formation. Establishing a sect in such a place could be considered a pioneer for human cultivators. Wang Daoyuan was quite respectful towards cultivators who opened up a place for humans to live. He could pay them a visit and inquire about the Ewood essence. He cupped his hands at the two and said, "If what Dao Yu said is true, I can pay a visit to your sect." The two of them were delighted. Xie Qin smiled and said, "Dao Yu, please follow us." After saying that, he controlled the flying boat to lead the way. Wang Daoyuan's flying boat followed behind. After traveling for more than 10,000 miles, they arrived at an island with a radius of 3 to 4,000 miles. There was a level 5 high-grade attribute-less spirit vein on the island. Such a spirit vein wasn't very conspicuous in the Sea of 7 Stars. In the center of the island was a small mountain range that stretched for 5 to 600 miles. There was a large formation protecting the mountain range. Close to the mountain range there were several cities of different sizes. There were formations in the cities that converted violent spirit chi into gentle spirit chi. It should be a place where mortals and low-level cultivators lived. A place with violent spirit chi wasn't suitable for spirit plants to live in. In addition, this was an island that often had strong winds and huge waves, as well as the invasion of ferocious beasts. It was not easy to feed a large number of people. When Xie Qin saw that Wu Daoyu was sizing up the island, he introduced, "Wu Daoyu, this is Golden Sand Island, where my Golden Sand sect is located. We have already informed the sect master and the Great Elder. They will be here soon to welcome you. Although my Golden Sand sect is a small force, it has a foundation of over 5,000 years. Currently, there were several thousand cultivators and close to 1 million mortals. The businesses on this island were all accumulated by generations of people. There are also some smaller islands in the surrounding area, which are also properties of our Golden Sand sect." Wang Daoyuan nodded. "It really is a paradise. With Jinsha Island here it can be self-reliant." When the flying boat reached the sky above the largest city, 2 mid-stage nascent soul cultivators rose into the sky from the city. One of them was a mid-stage Yuanian cultivator wearing a golden robe and a golden crown. He cupped his hands and said, "I am the Golden Sand sect master and Lin Tao. Greetings, Wu Daoyu. Please come into the city for a chat, Wu Daoyu." The Golden Sand sect was quite good at handling matters. They were quite considerate to receive him in the city. After all, he was a newcomer. There was no trust between the two parties, so he definitely wouldn't enter the other party's sect. There were many mortals and low-level cultivators in the city, so the array formations were also much weaker. Once a fight broke out, there would definitely be heavy casualties. It would be difficult to keep him here. Receiving him in the city also meant that they didn't have any bad intentions. Wang Daoyuan greeted the two of them. Then he followed the 4 people from the Golden Sand sect into the city and arrived at the city lord's residence. Everyone took their seats. Some Foundation establishment female cultivators served a sumptuous meal. And Lin Tao smiled and said, "The Golden Sand sect's territory is small and we are lacking in resources. The food and wine are not presentable. Please don't blame us, Daoyu. Sect master, and you must be joking. The food and wine are already very sumptuous. I'm just a rogue cultivator. I don't deserve such hospitality." And Lin Tao waved his hand and said, "Wu Daoyu, you don't have to be so modest. With Daoyu's strength, you should be treated courteously wherever you go. Our Golden Sand sect has been established for thousands of years. In the past, demonic cultivators didn't form a large faction, so the sect's life was relatively good. However, in recent years, the battle between the few large demonic cultivator factions in the south has become more and more intense. This has caused a large number of demonic cultivators and half-demons to flee and invade our Golden Sand sect's businesses. With just the few of us, it's very difficult to protect this foundation. I want to recruit rogue cultivators to resist the demonic cultivators and half-demons together. I heard that Daoyu is also a rogue cultivator and doesn't have a place to stay for the time being. I want to invite Daoyu to join the Golden Sand sect. As long as Daoyu agrees, you will be the 4th elder of our Golden Sand sect. Your status and treatment will be the same as the second and third elders. Wang Daoyuan's main goal was to find the Yi-wood essence. He only came here to gather information. He had the essences of the 5 elements. He just needed to gather some spirit herbs that Yuanian cultivators needed, as well as some 5th-grade refining materials. After that, he would return to Beiyuan Xiuxian. What was the point of staying in the Golden Sand sect as an elder? Wang Daoyuan refused. I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint Daoyu. I came to the Myriad Demon Islands to find some special refining materials to refine my life-bound magic tool. After leaving the Fire Lotus Island, I walked for more than 200,000 miles and still didn't see anyone. Demonic cultivators run amok in the Myriad Demon Islands, so I didn't dare to wander around. After meeting Xie Qin and Du Zhe, Daoyu learned some things about the Golden Sand sect and wanted to gather information. I don't like to be tied down. I like to travel and never stay in one place for too long. Please forgive me, Daoyu. And Lin Tao's expression changed slightly, but he was still very polite. Everyone has their own ambitions. We won't force you. However, I want to invite Daoyu to be a guest elder of the Golden Sand sect. I won't restrict Daoyu's freedom. Although the Golden Sand sect is a small sect and doesn't have a large territory, it has been established for thousands of years. However, since the sect had been established for thousands of years, it still had some resources. On a few of the larger islands there were some industries. It would be a piece of cake for him to gather information for his fellow Taoists. We won't ask Daoyu to do anything. If the Golden Sand sect is in trouble in the future, Daoyu can help us if you're still in the Myriad Demon Islands. Being a guest elder wasn't a big deal. The Golden Sand sect was different from the Scarlet Flame sect. The Scarlet Flame sect was a part of the Seven Stars Alliance. If he got too involved with them, he might expose his identity. The Golden Sand sect was just a small sect. Even if his identity was exposed, they wouldn't be able to keep him. Luck played a big part in obtaining the water essence and fire essence. Now that he knew nothing about the Myriad Demon Islands, finding the Yi-wood essence would be like finding a needle in a haystack. If he had a force to help him find it, the situation would naturally be much better. He cupped his hands and said, being a guest elder of the Golden Sand sect is naturally not a problem. However, I'll be traveling frequently in the future. I'm afraid I won't be able to help the Golden Sand sect much. And Lin Tao waved his hand and said, it's fine. The Golden Sand sect also wants to use Daoyu to intimidate demonic cultivators and half-demons. After all, having 5 Yuanian cultivators is more intimidating than having 4 Yuanian cultivators. With that, he took out a white jade medallion. This is the medallion of our Golden Sand sect's guest elder. With this medallion, fellow Taoist status and identity are equal to that of the second elder and the third elder. If you need any help, you can ask the disciples of the Golden Sand sect. What materials do Daoyu need? I'll ask the disciples to help find out. Wang Daoyuan didn't hide anything. I need the Yi-wood essence to refine a magic tool. Low-grade tier 5 will do. 4th grade will do as well. It'll just take more effort to refine it. And Lin Tao thought for a while and said, there's no requirement for the grade. That's not difficult. Although 5-element essence isn't common, it's not like it doesn't exist. There's a huge market on the Devil Slaying Island more than 50,000 kilometers south of the Golden Sand Island. More than 500 years ago, a piece of high-grade tier 5 earth essence appeared there. As for 4th grade 5-element essence, it has appeared many times but we've never paid attention to it. I'll ask the disciples to pay more attention to this. It won't take long for us to find 4th grade 5-element essence. Wang Daoyuan took the token and said with a smile, in that case I'll have to trouble Sect Master. Chapter 771. And Lin Tao and the other 3 were overjoyed. Wang Daoyuan accepted the token and called in Lin Tao Sect Master. This meant that he was willing to be the guest elder. Whether or not they would help at the critical moment, the Golden Sand sect would nominally have 5 Yuanian cultivators. They could intimidate the thieves and also boost the morale of the sect's cultivators. And Lin Tao asked, Elder Wu, where do you plan to open a cave residence? I'll let the others prepare. Wang Daoyuan waved his hand, no need to trouble yourself. I've always been traveling and I don't like to stay in one place for too long. Since there's a big market on the Demon Slaying Island, there might be Yi-wood essence there. I'll stay there. Grand Elder Mo Liangping quickly dissuaded him. Although the Demon Slaying Island isn't big, it's still a place where many factions meet. The faction that originally controlled the Demon Slaying Island's market has been affected by the conflict between the demonic cultivator factions, so they don't have the time to manage things there. Itinerant cultivators and half-demons became rampant. Itinerant cultivators often robbed shops and killed many people. Wu Daoyu is new here, so I'm afraid he won't be able to deal with these things. Wang Daoyuan smiled. It's okay, it's just killing demonic cultivators and half-beasts. It's not a big deal. And Lin Tao thought for a while and said, how about this? Second Elder Xie Qin is reliable and he used to guard the demon-slaying islands market. Let him accompany you. He can understand the situation there and let the disciples guarding the business there get to know Elder Wu. Wang Daoyuan had no objection to this. He was going to the demon-slaying island mainly to get all kinds of information. If he could understand the basic situation of the demon islands, even if he couldn't find Ewood essence on the demon-slaying island, he could go elsewhere. That's not a problem. I also want to go there and find Ewood essence myself. With Elder Xie accompanying me, that would be perfect. Wang Daoyuan stayed in the city for 2 days and then followed Xie Qin to the demon-slaying island. The demon-slaying island was less than 2,000 miles in diameter and there was a mountain range in the middle. The market was west of the mountain range and extended all the way to the coast. As the largest market in the vicinity, it was quite lively with many flying boats coming and going around. Wang Daoyuan's flying boat landed near the coast in the northwest corner of the market. The Golden Sand Sect's shop was located in the northern part of the demon-slaying island's market. The location was not too good, but it was not too remote either. The two of them got off the flying boat and arrived in front of a shop. The signboard above the door had the words Golden Sand Restaurant written in gold. Xie Qin smiled and said, "This is our Golden Sand Sect's shop." The sect has a total of 4 shops on the demon-slaying island. In addition to this restaurant, there were also shops selling magic tools, pills and arrays. Originally, business was pretty good, but now that the market square was getting more and more chaotic, the shop's business was also affected. It's barely profitable now, but it's hard to say what will happen in the future. After reaching Tier 4, spirit talismans were extremely rare. Ordinary sects simply did not have the inheritance of Tier 4 and above spirit talismans. The power of the Golden Sand sect was relatively ordinary, and its founder was only a late-stage Yuanian itinerant cultivator. Naturally, its inheritance was not very brilliant. It was normal that it did not have a spirit talisman inheritance. Looks like our sect's inheritance is pretty good. I mainly cultivate alchemy and blacksmithing so I can refine magic tools and sell pills here. Hearing this, Xie Qin could not hide his excitement. I didn't expect Elder Wu to be proficient in alchemy and blacksmithing as well. The sect has really picked up a treasure. Wang Daoyuan waved his hand. Elder Xie, you're too kind. I'm only at superior tier 4 in alchemy and blacksmithing. I can't say I'm proficient. That's not bad. Elder Wu, you're not old. You're probably less than 500 years old, right? You're so young, yet you're already a Yuanian cultivator and have reached superior tier 4 in alchemy and blacksmithing. With such talent, it'll be easy for you to break through to tier 5 in the future. The founder is also proficient in alchemy and blacksmithing, and his inheritance is pretty good. If you need it, I'll send it to you later. With the founder's inheritance as a reference, it's only a matter of time before you break through to tier 5. Of course, Wang Daoyuan would not reject this offer. It would be nice to have more inheritance, especially the alchemy inheritance. He only had the incomplete alchemy inheritance of Perfected Lord Bai Ling and the Outer Sea Pill scripture that he bought when he bought the courtyard on Rare Treasure Island. Although the Outer Sea Pill scripture was a tier 5 alchemy inheritance, it was too crude. Thank you, Elder. My alchemy and blacksmithing inheritances are also crude. If I can get a better inheritance, I can break through to tier 5 as soon as possible. With the Golden Sand Sect's inheritance and a large amount of raw materials, his alchemy and blacksmithing would progress much faster. Then the two of them entered the shop. Xie Qin originally wanted Wang Daoyuan to live in the courtyard behind the shop, but he insisted on living in the earth fire room in the back of the shop. There were superior tier 5 non-elemental spirit veins on Demon Slaying Island, so the spirit energy in the lava was naturally of high quality. It was also more convenient for cultivation. Xie Qin even asked the shopkeepers of the 4 shops to come and greet Wang Daoyuan. Not long after the two of them arrived at the shop, an early-stage Yuanian cultivator came to visit. Wang Daoyuan was unfamiliar with this place, so Xie Qin naturally welcomed him. Xie Qin invited the early-stage Yuanian cultivator to the backyard, and Wang Daoyuan accompanied him. Xie Qin asked, "May I know why Daoyu is here?" The cultivator surnamed Lu glanced at Wang Daoyuan. "This Daoyu looks unfamiliar." Xie Qin introduced, "This is our Golden Sand Sect's newly recruited guest elder, Wu Chuan. There's no need to hide business from Elder Wu." The cultivator surnamed Lu cupped his hands and said, "I'm Lu Ziyuan. Greetings Wu Daoyu." Wang Daoyuan returned the greeting. "Greetings Daoyu Lu." Lu Ziyuan continued, "Recently the Devil Flame sect has been pressuring us more and more. Many of our businesses have been affected. Pills and magic tools are in short supply, so we can only rely on our previous savings. The sect master sent me to ask for help, hoping that your sect can sell us more resources. Also, it's best if the price is lower as we don't have much left." Xie Qin smiled. "Our two sects are both righteous sects and we're struggling to survive on Demon Islands. It's only right that we help each other. The sect master and the Grand Elder have also instructed that all the goods that our Golden Sand sect sells to your esteemed sect will be sold at 30% of the market price. If your sect needs it, we can also help." Lu Ziyuan's face was full of joy. "Thank you Daoyu. Your sect has been harassed many times by demonic cultivators and half-demons. I can't thank you enough for thinking of helping us at this time." Wang Daoyuan looked at Lu Ziyuan and felt that this person's aura was somewhat familiar, as if he had seen him somewhere before. This sense of familiarity wasn't personal, but related to the cultivation method he cultivated. Xie Qin and Lu Ziyuan exchanged some pleasantries before seeing him off. After returning to the small courtyard, Wang Daoyuan asked, "Elder Xie, what's the background of this Daoyu Lu?" Xie Qin replied, "Lu Ziyuan is an elder of the Jinhai sect. Like our Golden Sand sect, the Jinhai sect is also a righteous sect. Moreover, the Jinhai sect has a very long history. It was established more than 30,000 years ago and was once a subordinate force of the Imperial Regency. It helped the Imperial Regency guard the Demon Islands. Back in the day, it was a famous sect with a soul formation cultivator in its ranks. Unfortunately, after the Imperial Regency was destroyed, the Jinhai sect also declined. The Jinhai sect learned a lot from the Imperial Regency. After the Imperial Regency was destroyed, some disciples fled to the Jinhai sect. The Jinhai sect is also proficient in refining corpses, taming beasts and puppets. They're not weak. Now that the Sea of Seven Stars has no time to care about the Demon Islands, the righteous sects like us are having a hard time. The two sects have always been helping each other and have a good relationship." Hearing Xie Qin mention the Imperial Regency, Wang Daoyuan immediately remembered. He had indeed seen Lu Ziyuan's aura on other cultivators before. Back in the Seven Stars secret realm, he encountered Blood Shark, True Lord Raging Sea, a late-stage Yuanian cultivator. His aura was very similar to Lu Ziyuan's. Chapter 772. True Lord Raging Sea was a core member of Blood Shark, so he must have cultivated the core techniques of the Imperial Regency. Lu Ziyuan's aura was similar to his, so the techniques they cultivated should be the same or at least similar. Techniques were not like spells, they could not be passed down casually. In order to create a spell, a cultivator would only need to spend a few decades to do so. However, in order to create a cultivation technique, it required the continuous deduction of several generations of people. Wang Daoyuan had deduced the Five Spirits Immortal Transformation technique for the Yuaniing stage. He had a few techniques for reference and even entered the space of the Spirit Orb. Even so, it still took him hundreds of years to deduce a technique that consumed a lot of resources. The value of a technique was not something that spells or secret techniques could compare to. Therefore, no one would casually hand over their own techniques to someone else. Lu Ziyuan's technique was similar to True Lord Raging Seas. It seemed that the relationship between the Jinhai sect and the Imperial Regency was not as simple as a major force and a subsidiary force. The Jinhai sect was probably a backup force left behind by the Imperial Regency in the Demon Islands. Once something happened to the sect, it would be easy to make a comeback here. However, there was one thing that Wang Daoyuan could not understand. The Imperial Regency's forces had not completely collapsed. There was still Blood Shark left, and they had already stabilized the situation in the Sea of Seven Stars. If the Jinhai sect continued to be in the nest of demonic cultivators, it would only be a matter of time before it was destroyed. Continuing to stay in the Demon Islands would only be wasting their strength in vain, there was not much practical use. Under normal circumstances, the Jinhai sect should be withdrawn to the Sea of Seven Stars. All the Imperial Regency's backup forces should be consolidated and focused on development. With the advantage of the Imperial Regency's inheritance, they should be able to accumulate enough strength to overthrow the Seven Stars Alliance in a few thousand years' time. But Blood Shark did not care about the Jinhai sect at all, it was really strange. There must be a reason for this abnormality. If the remaining forces of the Imperial Regency dared to do this, there must be a big plan. The information that Wang Daoyuan knew was still too little. It was impossible to deduce the Imperial Regency's plan. If the Imperial Regency really had some grand plan, the Xinhai sect would definitely not be simple. Not to mention other things, there were definitely a lot of hidden trump cards. If the Imperial Regency wanted to play tricks, they would definitely target the Seven Stars Alliance. As an itinerant cultivator, he naturally wanted to hide as far away as possible. Of course, this big plan wouldn't be effective in a short period of time. Right now, the Xinhai sect was still being bullied by the demonic cultivators. Blood Shark and the Seven Stars Alliance didn't have any conflicts either. Blood Shark's side did not have the upper hand in terms of strength, so it was impossible for them to flip the table in a short period of time. There was no need for him to leave now. He just had to be careful not to get too involved with the Xinhai sect. Although Wang Daoyuan was thinking about a lot of things, he didn't show it on the surface. After chatting with Xie Qin for a while, he left the small courtyard and went to the Earth Fire Room. The Earth Fire Room here wasn't small. There were about 500 to 600 small Earth Fire Rooms. The bottom of the Earth Fire Room had been sealed by an array, but he could still feel the strong fluctuations of fire spiritual power. Wang Daoyuan came to the Earth Fire Room at the bottom. This place was very close to the underground lava. Cultivators below the Yuanying level couldn't stay here for too long. Yuanying cultivators wouldn't be affected too much, but they would feel more uncomfortable. He had the spiritual fire, so there wasn't much of a problem. Wang Daoyuan took out the low-grade 4th-tier weapon refining cauldron that he had refined himself and continued to refine the upper-grade 4th-tier defensive magic weapon. Once he was familiar with it, he could try to refine the 5th-tier magic weapon. 3 days later, Xie Qin sent over the weapon refining and alchemy methods left behind by the Golden Sand Sect's founder. Along with the methods, there were many alchemy and weapon refining materials. In order to keep him here, the Golden Sand Sect really put in a lot of effort. Previously, when he was at Rare Treasures Island, he couldn't sell the magic weapons and pills he refined quickly. Now that he had the Golden Sand Sect backing him up, he could get as many materials as he wanted. The refined pills and magic weapons were all bought by the sect store. Wang Daoyuan naturally wouldn't let go of this great opportunity to improve his alchemy and weapon refining skills. As for the Golden Sand Sect's good intentions, he would just help them solve some problems. He stayed in this Earth Fire Room for a year and refined more than 10 furnaces of 4th-tier pills and 5 defensive magic weapons. According to the rules, the sect store would buy the pills at 70% of the market price. Of course, the price of the materials would be deducted. Even so, Wang Daoyuan had earned more than 10,000 superior-grade spirit stones. His alchemy and weapon refining skills had also improved greatly. Just as he was about to continue refining pills and weapons, there was a commotion in the Golden Sand restaurant. Wang Daoyuan released his divine consciousness to investigate the situation. He saw 3 fiendish cultivators standing at the entrance of the Golden Sand restaurant. They were 2 meters tall and had strong waists. The 3 of them were all in the early Yuanying stage. When they stood at the entrance of the restaurant, no one dared to eat or drink in the restaurant. Even the business of the shops next to the restaurant was much worse. They lost dozens or hundreds of superior-grade spirit stones a day. Xie Qin had already arrived at the entrance of the restaurant. He cupped his hands at the 3 of them and said, "Daoyu, what business do you have here?" The leader of the fiendish cultivators smiled and said, "Nothing. We just saw that the scenery on this street is good and wanted to take a look here. Why is the Golden Sand Sect so involved that you even care about the things on the street?" "They were here to pick a fight." Xie Qin smiled and said, "I don't know how the Golden Sand Sect has offended the 3 of you. Please tell me, Daoyu." Daoyu is really open-minded. We're from the Devil Flame sect. All these years we've been fighting against the Xinhai sect, but we've never touched the Golden Sand sect. Our 2 sects have no enmity in the past, so why are you supporting the Xinhai sect? If it's just a normal transaction, it's fine. However, the Golden Sand sect actually sold supplies to the Xinhai sect at 70% of the price. This is deliberately going against the Devil Flame sect. Since the spirit stones that the Golden Sand sect earns are subsidized to the Xinhai sect and turned into supplies to kill the disciples of the Devil Flame sect, we'll deal with the root of the problem. If that's the case, we might as well solve the problem from the root so that your Golden Sand sect can't continue doing business. There was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in the world. The fact that the Golden Sand sect sold supplies to the Xinhai sect at a low price naturally couldn't be hidden. First, the Devil Flame sect came looking for trouble. Now the Golden Sand sect wasn't easy to deal with. Xie Qin smiled and said, "The Xinhai sect and the Golden Sand sect have been on good terms for a long time. We've always had some discounts when doing business. This has been the practice for many years. We have no intention of targeting your sect. The Devil Flame sect cultivator was stubborn. I don't care what the relationship between the two of you is. Even if you're wearing the same pants. Since you're helping the Jinhai sect, you're going against the Devil Flame sect. Now, either you draw a clear line with the Jinhai sect or we attack the Golden Sand sect as well. Xie Qin was in a dilemma. This matter was really difficult to deal with. If they drew a clear line with the Jinhai sect and the Devil cultivators took over the Jinhai sect, the Golden Sand sect would be isolated and helpless. If they continued to support the Jinhai sect, the Golden Sand sect would suffer a great loss. If the Devil Flame sect attacked the Golden Sand sect, the losses would be even greater. Just as he was in a dilemma, Wang Daoyuan asked via voice transmission, "What did the sect master and the others say? Are they going to start a war with the Devil Flame sect or draw a clear line with the Jinhai sect?" Xie Qin replied via voice transmission, "I just sent a message to the sect. The sect master and the Grand Elder haven't responded yet. No one from the Golden Sand sect responded, so they needed someone to stand up for them. They had benefited a lot from the Golden Sand sect in the past year, so they naturally had to stand up for them." Wang Daoyuan stopped refining elixirs and weapons. He flew out of the Earth Fire room and landed in front of the Golden Sand restaurant. Holding the Black Dragon halberd in his hand, he didn't hide his spiritual power and blood chi fluctuations. A faint dragon chi spread out. The three devil cultivators' expressions changed slightly, and they looked at him warily. At this moment, Lu Ziyuan also flew over. "Xie Daoyu Wu Daoyu, don't panic. I Lu Ziyuan am here." He landed in front of the Golden Sand restaurant and took out a lower rank 5 puppet from his interspatial ring. He said with a smile, "The Demon Flame sect is causing trouble in the market of the demon-slaying island. Are you looking down on the other sects?" The leader of the devil cultivators sneered. "It seems that the Golden Sand sect is determined to die with the Jinhai sect. In that case, there's no need to give you a chance." Chapter 773. At this moment, Xie Qin received a message from Lintao. He said with a smile, "The sect master has ordered that the Golden Sand sect and the Jinhai sect should stand together. We'll stand together for good or ill." Lu Ziyuan was overjoyed. The Golden Sand sect had officially entered the fray. The pressure on the Jinhai sect was greatly reduced. The three cultivators from the Demon Flame sect snorted. "Since the Golden Sand sect wants to die, don't blame us for being ruthless in the future." Xie Qin sneered. "There's no need to wait. I'll let you know what it means to be ruthless now. The sect master and the Grand Elder have decided to keep the three of you." Wang Daoyuan liked Lin Tao's decision. Since they were going to do it, they should go all out. Anyway, there was no room for reconciliation between the Golden Sand sect and the Demon Flame sect. Rather than letting these four go back and let them cause trouble again, it was better to be ruthless and keep them here to solve future problems. After all, these three were the ones who provoked them. It was reasonable for the Golden Sand sect to take them down. Although Wang Daoyuan didn't want to get involved in the power struggle, it was difficult for him to escape now. Even if he ran now, he would be hunted down by the demonic cultivators. Anyway, he had no family or job here. He could fight however he wanted. If he couldn't win, he could just leave. The demonic cultivators wouldn't send soul formation cultivators to hunt him down. The Demon Flame sect wasn't a big demonic cultivator force. They didn't have any soul formation cultivators. Although a peak nascent soul cultivator was strong, his concealment methods were enough to completely avoid being tracked. There were 3 of them on both sides. Lu Ziyuan's puppet could barely exert the strength of an early-stage Yuanian cultivator. The leader of the Demon Flame sect said disdainfully, "You outnumber us. We're no match for you, but it's not that easy to keep us here." Wang Daoyuan smiled. "I can't keep too many of you. I can only keep one." Lu Ziyuan also patted the puppet next to him. "I can't keep too many either. I can only keep one." Xie Qin's strength wasn't outstanding. "I'm not strong, but it's not a problem to hold one of them back. I'll leave the killing to the 2 Daoyu." Since things had already gotten to this point, there was no point in delaying any longer. They had to make the best use of their time. "Daoyu have come from afar, so our Golden Sand sect must also play host to you. Don't even think about leaving now that you're here." After saying that, he took the initiative to attack a demonic cultivator. Wang Daoyuan also brandished his halberd and attacked the leading devil cultivator. Relying on the divine beast's ability to restrain demonic cultivators, he could easily kill a mid-stage Yuanian demonic cultivator on the Fire Lotus Island. Even though it was a sneak attack, he would still be able to win in a head-on battle. Now, dealing with an early-stage Yuanian cultivator was even less of a problem. Although the leader of the demonic cultivators here was not weak, he was restrained by the divine beast's power. However, Wang Daoyuan was rushing towards him. He couldn't dodge even if he wanted to, so he could only brace himself and take it. He took out a heavy sword that looked like a door and swung it to meet the halberd head-on. This fellow's physical body was indeed not weak. The black dragon halberd clashed with the heavy sword. An ear-piercing sound rang out, and both of them retreated more than 30 feet. A few of the stone slabs under their feet were also crushed. This attack was considered a draw. The strength of Wang Daoyuan's fleshly body was built with the help of a huge amount of spirit flame essence. There were many cultivators who had plenty of resources, but a cultivator who had all 5 elements and 5 types of spirit flame was one of a kind. This demonic cultivator's physical strength was on par with his when they were at the same level. It seemed that this body tempering technique was not ordinary. His 2 companions were more lackluster. Xie Qin and one of the demonic cultivators fought back and forth. Together with his puppet, Lu Ziyuan completely suppressed the other demonic cultivator. The other 4 people were also surprised by the two's battle. The stone slabs on the street were all 5th-stage volcanic rocks. Although they had not been refined and were not as strong as Dharma artifacts of the same level, they were not easily broken. The leader of the demonic cultivators had a serious expression on his face. He propped up a blood-red protective chi barrier. Wang Daoyuan channeled a large amount of dragon chi into the black dragon halberd. The black dragon halberd was nourished by the dragon chi and emitted waves of dragon's might. Its hands had also turned into dragon claws. Since it was difficult to win with physical strength, he would rely on the divine beast's might to restrain the demonic cultivator. He swung his halberd again, and the demonic cultivator swung his sword to meet it. This time, both sides were not just competing with physical strength. They were also using their spiritual power. The demonic cultivator was restrained and was at a disadvantage. Under this attack, the demonic cultivator was pushed back 50 to 60 feet. More than 10 tiles were crushed under his feet. Wang Daoyuan did not move at all. This time, the demonic cultivator's face revealed a trace of fear. He had always been very confident in his physical body. Now that he was being suppressed by the means he was best at, he was a little dispirited. Kill him while he's down. Wang Daoyuan had finally defeated his opponent. Naturally, he would beat him while he was down. Once again, he pounced forward and swung his halberd. The demonic cultivator had not yet regained his footing and had no room to counterattack. He could only block the attack with his heavy sword. His footing was unstable, so he could not exert his strength. With a muffled sound, the demonic cultivator was sent flying and crashed heavily into a shop. Fortunately, the shopkeeper of this shop had foresight and had already activated the defensive array. When such a big guy crashed into the array, the entire array shook violently. Before he landed, Wang Daoyuan's halberd had already arrived. The demonic cultivator instantly turned into a streak of blood light, wanting to escape. Unfortunately, he was not fast enough. When the black dragon halberd touched him, the halberd left a bloody wound that was more than a foot long on his back. This method of escaping by turning into a streak of blood light was also a secret escape technique of the blood demon lineage. It was called blood escape. Wang Daoyuan had Shui Yan's blood demon clone, so he knew the pros and cons of blood escape very well. It was extremely fast, but it was not flexible enough. Moreover, it consumed blood essence and quintessential essence. Once caught up, it would be difficult to dodge the attack. Wang Daoyuan used his feather blade and condensed 300 silver feathers to attack the blood light. The feather blade's speed was not inferior to lightning techniques. A demonic cultivator of the same level could not escape with blood escape. When the demonic cultivator saw that the feathers were chasing him at an extremely fast speed and carried an aura that terrified him, he was greatly terrified. He immediately dispersed blood escape, and his body flickered with dazzling blood light. The 300 feathers attacked the blood light. A moment later, the blood light dissipated. The soft armor on the blood demon's body had been shattered into pieces, and there were many wounds on his body. However, these wounds were all superficial and did not injure his internal organs. However, this blood demon was very weak. His blood chi fluctuations were not as strong as ordinary cultivators of the same level. His spirit chi fluctuations were also very weak. It seemed that using blood escape and the blood light had consumed a lot of his spirit chi. Wang Daoyuan naturally would not let go of this heaven-sent opportunity. The shadow of a dragon appeared around him and quickly chased after him. The demonic cultivator wanted to dodge, but how could he escape from Wang Daoyuan when he had exhausted all his spirit chi? Wang Daoyuan caught up to him very quickly. Brandishing his halberd, he slapped his back. After the demonic cultivator fell to the ground, he immediately fainted. His blood chi and spirit chi were almost exhausted, and his spirit chi was relatively weak. Now he did not have much spirit chi left in his yuanying. It was impossible for him to escape from his body, let alone self-destruct. In order to avoid future troubles, Wang Daoyuan lifted him up and searched for his yuanying. Then the halberd pierced his dantian. Yuanying was killed while he was still unconscious. Wang Daoyuan took his universe ring and put away the corpse. This corpse was not completely useless. He could use it to test Lu Ziyuan. When the other two demonic cultivators saw that their strongest companion had been killed, they were no longer in the mood to continue fighting. Unfortunately, they were entangled with Lu Ziyuan and Xie Qin and could not escape. Wang Daoyuan used True Dragon Flight and appeared behind Xie Qin's opponent. This guy was much weaker. Before he could dodge, the black dragon halberd smashed into his back. His whole body fell to the ground with a dull thud. Xie Qin was quick to react. He immediately controlled his flying sword and attacked his opponent's dantian from behind. Even Yuanying was pierced by the sword. The demonic cultivator on Lu Ziyuan's side had already been pressed to the ground by the puppets. He also attacked from the side. The demonic cultivator was soon dead. Lu Ziyuan put away the demonic cultivator's corpse and smiled. Wu Daoyu is really capable. Blood Sea Daoist strength was at the top of the early Yuanying cultivators. Daoyu killed him in a head-on clash and was still unharmed. I'm afraid he is invincible among the early Yuanying cultivators. Chapter 774. Wang Daoyuan said humbly, Daoyu's praise is too much. I just happened to restrain him. If not for my technique restraining him, even if I won, I would have been seriously injured. Lu Ziyuan smiled and said, Wu Daoyu's too humble. I also want to discuss something with you. My Zhenhai sect obtained some of the Imperial Regency's legacies and has some achievements in refining corpses and puppets. The corpses of these three fiendish cultivators are good materials for refining corpses. I want to use other things to exchange for the fiendish cultivators that Daoyu killed. What do you two Daoyu think? Wang Daoyuan understood that this Zhenhai sect was indeed famous. Both sides had already laid their cards on the table. For a refined corpse to have the combat power of a cultivator of the same level, it would need hundreds of years to nurture it. During this period, a lot of resources would be needed. The cultivators of the Zhenhai sect were not stupid. They would not make such a long-term investment when the sect was on the brink of destruction. Moreover, the corpse refinement technique was too simple. In the sea, one's strength would be limited. It was not worth the huge cost to refine them. In the puppet refining method that Wang Daoyuan obtained from the Seven Stars Mystic Realm, there was a special type of puppet called the corpse puppet. The Imperial Regency was proficient in the art of puppets. They had also obtained many legacies from the Seven Stars Mystic Realm. It was very likely that they had obtained the method to refine corpse puppets. This thing was made from corpses as the main material and was refined using the method of puppets. The things that were refined had the characteristics of both refined corpses and puppets. Refined corpses had strong bodies, but their methods were too simple. Puppets had many methods, but they could not grow continuously. They had high requirements for refining materials and consumed a lot of spirit stones. Corpse puppets inherited the refined corpse's ability to absorb corpse chi and death chi to grow continuously. Like puppets, they could also have many attack methods. The most important point was that the corpse puppet had extremely powerful strength right after it was refined. They were not like refined corpses, which needed many years of nurturing before they could fight with cultivators of the same level. The power of corpse puppets could come from spirit stones, corpse chi and death chi. Newly refined corpse puppets did not have enough corpse chi and death chi. In order to unleash the power of a cultivator of the same level, one could only rely on spirit stones. The difficulty of refining corpse puppets was much higher than refining corpses and ordinary puppets. However, the effect it could bring to bear was much greater than the other two. The reason why the Zhenhai sect wanted the corpses of the fiendish cultivators was most likely to make them into zombie puppets. Xie Qin smiled and said, These two devil cultivators, one was killed by Elder Wu alone, and the other was also killed by him. As for how to deal with it, it will be up to Elder Wu. Wang Daoyuan thought for a moment, then said with a smile, There's no use for me to keep the devil cultivator's corpse. If Daoyu needs it, just take it. Lu Ziyuan hurriedly waved his hand. The Golden Sand sect was dragged into this because of the Zhenhai sect. If I were to take advantage of you now, I would be too ungrateful. Our Zhenhai sect needs a large number of refined corpses to defend against the devil clan. In the future, after Daoyu kills the devil cultivator, You can also sell the corpses to me. If Wu Daoyu doesn't take my things, we won't be able to take the corpses of the devil cultivators you kill in the future." After hearing this, Wang Daoyuan understood what was going on. The Xinhai sect's ambition wasn't small. They didn't want to refine corpse puppets just to get through the current crisis, but to refine them in large quantities. From the looks of it, the Xinhai sect should have a huge amount of resources in their hands. They had a huge amount of resources, brilliant inheritances, and tens of thousands of years of foundation. For such a sect to be bullied by the Devil Flame sect, no matter how one looked at it, it seemed like a joke. Previously, they had guessed that the Xinhai sect didn't leave the Demon Islands and instead stayed here to cause trouble. Now it seemed that this was indeed the case. The Imperial Regency had been defeated for thousands of years. As the backup left behind by the Imperial Regency, the Xinhai sect should have started refining corpse puppets long ago. The Xinhai sect's strength should be far greater than the Devil Flame sect's. Now that they were pretending to be like this, it was probably to fool others. In any case, they were going to screw over the Seven Stars Alliance, and it had nothing to do with him. Wang Daoyuan naturally couldn't be bothered with these trivial matters. It was good to have a chance to earn some resources. Since Daoyu insists, then it would be impolite for me to refuse. I don't lack spirit stones or ordinary materials. The only thing I lack is wood essence to refine my natal Dharma artifact. I wonder if your sect has this thing? Hearing this, Lu Ziyuan looked troubled. The thing Wu Daoyu needs is really not easy to find. Wood essence isn't considered rare in the world, but it's usually hard to find. Even if you get a tier 5 one, you will quickly use it up. Now you only have a tier 4 one. If you use it to exchange for the corpse of the Yuanying devil cultivator, Daoyu will be at a disadvantage. Hearing this, Wang Daoyuan was a little excited. He was just casually asking, and he didn't expect that there really was one. Tier 4 wasn't bad. The wood attribute spirit vein in the space of the spirit pearl was already low-grade tier 5. Moreover, the density of the spirit energy it produced was still increasing. Before long, it would grow into a mid-grade tier 5 spirit vein. However, the scale of the spirit vein was too small, and it was still far from being able to produce wood essence on its own. If the tier 4 wood essence was infused with the nourishment of a tier 5 spirit vein, it would grow to tier 5 in a short time. Tier 4 is also passable. It'll just take a bit more effort to refine it. To tell you the truth, I was worried about where to find this thing. Since Daoyu has it, I naturally can't let it go. Lu Ziyuan smiled. In that case, Daoyu, please wait for a moment. I'll go and get the wood essence. After saying this, he left and headed south. In the time it took to brew a cup of tea, he returned to this place. He took out a 5-inch long, 2-inch wide dark green crystal. This is the only remaining piece of wood essence in our Xinhai sect. If it weren't for its low grade, it would have been used long ago. I really feel bad about exchanging this thing for the bodies of 2 Yuanying demonic cultivators. After saying this, he took out a pill bottle. Here are 10 nascent cultivating pills. Please accept them as compensation, Wu Daoyu. Wang Daoyuan didn't refuse. He accepted the items and handed the 2 demonic cultivator corpses to Lu Ziyuan. After taking the corpses, this guy quickly left. Wang Daoyuan and Xie Qin returned to the small courtyard behind the restaurant. Xie Qin asked, Elder Wu, don't you think that the Xinhai sect is a bit strange? The Demon Flame sect can attack us at any time now. There's no time to refine the corpses. The Xinhai sect's resources are already more than they can make ends meet. How can they have extra resources to refine corpses? Wang Daoyuan looked at him meaningfully. There was no shortage of smart people in this world. Elder Xie is indeed attentive. After all, the Xinhai sect was once a subordinate force of the Imperial Regency. Many Imperial Regency cultivators have joined them. It's not surprising that they have some secret techniques. Besides, how can a force that has been passed down for tens of thousands of years not have any backup plans? It's useless to think about this now. The Demon Flame sect is likely to come for revenge. It's better to strengthen the defenses of the shop as soon as possible. Wang Daoyuan didn't point it out. It was useless for the Golden Sand sect to know about the Xinhai sect and the Imperial Regency. The Golden Sand sect's strength wasn't enough to fill the gaps between the enemy's teeth. It was better to know nothing and build a good relationship with the Xinhai sect. When the Imperial Regency was still around, they refined corpses and used living people to refine clones. However, they were still decent and never destroyed other forces for no reason. The Golden Sand sect and the Xinhai sect got along well, so they probably wouldn't seek revenge. Besides, what did this have to do with him? Xie Qin was also a shrewd person. He immediately understood that the Xinhai sect was hiding something. He also knew that with the Golden Sand sect's strength, they could only pretend to be ignorant. Therefore he didn't ask any more questions. Wang Daoyuan left the small courtyard and returned to the earth fire room. The 5 elements essence had been gathered. Some were too low grade and there was too little Li fire essence, so he couldn't use it directly to perform the 3 treasures equipment nurturing technique for the time being. However, with the things in hand there was no need to take risks. The rest was up to time. He connected the E-wood essence and the wood spirit vein and waited for them to fuse on their own. After the metal spirit vein fused with the hepta gold essence, the concentration of spirit chi increased greatly. Even the Tai golden flame had become a level 5 spirit fire. After the water spirit vein fused with the water spirit vein, the Gui water death flame also showed signs of advancement. Chapter 775. Both the water spirit vein and the Gui water death flame obtained great benefits, but it also brought a problem. The amount of water in the spirit spring derived from the Gui water death flame and the water spirit vein increased rapidly. Relying on spiritual plants to absorb it alone was not enough to completely consume the water. Yun Yi, the fat cat, could only consume part of the yin qi and spiritual power. The water contained extremely strong yin qi. Ordinary spiritual plants and fish in the fish pond could not bear it at all. Wang Daoyuan also led the spring water to the north of the Gui water death flame, which was already close to the edge of the space of the spirit pearl. The doppelganger cleared out all the spirit plants in the vicinity and planted all the spirit plants that liked yin energy in the spirit fields. The spring water was divided into several canals, used to irrigate the 7-leaf ghost face flower, demon soul grass and other things. The Huangquan willow also broke off its branches and planted more than 10 trees beside the canals. The spiritual plants that absorbed yin qi increased greatly, and the spring water was completely consumed. Even if there was more spring water in the future, the spiritual plants in the spiritual field could not fully absorb it, but there were countermeasures. He could dig a big pit at the edge of the space of the spirit pearl and gather a pool. The space of the spirit pearl had been expanding, and there was enough space to hold the water. The essence of the 5 elements had been found, and for a long time in the future, there was no need to go out and adventure. After killing Blood Sea Spiritual Master, his universe ring also fell into the hands of Wang Daoyuan. Among them there was a 5th-level middle-grade heavy sword, a Devil Flame sect token, and more than 30,000 upper-grade spirit stones. There were a lot of elixirs, more than 10 nascent cultivating pills, and more than 25th-level blood essence strengthening pills to strengthen the body. Plus the elixirs he got before, Wang Daoyuan now had a lot of nascent cultivating pills in his hands. He did not need to go out recently so he could cultivate well. Of course, the work of refining pills and refining weapons had not stopped. 4th-level upper-grade elixirs and magic weapons all needed a long time to nurture. During this nurturing time he did not need to do anything, but he also did not dare to leave easily. At this time, it was still more suitable for cultivation. After refining the 4th-level upper-grade blood essence strengthening pill, Wang Daoyuan condensed a few pill patterns to nurture the elixir. After that, he did not have to worry much. He also took a nascent cultivating pill and meditated beside the fire eye. After forming the nascent soul, the spiritual energy seed fused into the Yuanying. Wang Daoyuan's control over these spiritual fires had also greatly increased. When he was not summoning the spiritual fires, they would obediently stay in Yuanying. It wasn't like before, where any fei that he ate would be instantly ignited by the rootless fire released by the spirit power seed. No matter what pill he ate, its medicinal properties were all burned away by the spiritual fire. Now that the flames were under his control, such a situation would no longer occur. After taking a nascent cultivating pill, he quickly refined it. A jade-colored energy that was a mixture of blood, spiritual sense, and spiritual energy slowly merged into his Yuanying. With the integration of this energy, the strength of Yuanying improved slightly. The power of this nascent cultivating pill was equivalent to 3 to 5 years of bitter cultivation for an ordinary cultivator. Even if Wang Daoyuan had the help of the spiritual energy seed, it would still take him half a year to achieve such results. On the other hand, refining this pill would only take a few days. After cultivating for a year, Wang Daoyuan's cultivation had improved significantly. He did not neglect the cultivation of his physical body either, and his strength could be considered to have improved slightly. While cultivating, he also used his spiritual sense to check the situation outside. During this year, the demon-slaying island market had been unusually quiet. After the Demon Flame sect's 3 early-stage Yuanying cultivators were killed, they only said that they would make the Jinhai sect and the Golden Sand sect pay with blood. However, they did not do anything. It was probably because the two sects had joined forces. On the surface, their strength was not much weaker than the Demon Flame sects. If the Demon Flame sect fought head-on, not only would they not gain any advantage, but they might also suffer huge losses. During this year, there were no major conflicts between the three sections. However, the Demon Flame sect did not stop there. It was not worth it to do it personally, so they recruited itinerant demonic cultivators to harass the businesses of the two sections. The Golden Sand sect's businesses were harassed even more. However, most of the Golden Sand sect's businesses were near the Golden Sand Island. Within Lintao and Mo Liangping there, they did not suffer too many losses. The Demon Flame sect did not give up, and their harassment was increasing. The Golden Sand sect was only a secondary target. The Jinhai sect was the main target, so they were hit even harder. Other than the island where the sect was located, the other businesses could no longer operate normally. The Jinhai sect could not sit still anymore. Soon they sent Lu Ziyuan to contact them. Wang Daoyuan had killed the Blood Sea spiritual master, so the Golden Sand sect paid more attention to him. The Jinhai sect did not dare to underestimate him either. Naturally, they could not ignore him when they were discussing matters. Wang Daoyuan arrived at Xiaqin's small courtyard. Lu Ziyuan was already waiting there. Seeing him come in, Lu Ziyuan cupped his hands and said, "Wu Daoyu's cultivation speed is really fast. It's only been a year, but you've made obvious progress. I'm afraid that in another 100 years, your cultivation will reach the mid-stage Yuanying." Wang Daoyuan said with a smile, "Daoyu's praise is too much. I also relied on a large number of nascent cultivating pills. May I know why Daoyu is here?" Lu Ziyuan sighed. "Ever since the three of us killed 3 Yuanying cultivators from the Demon Flame sect a year ago, the Demon Flame sect has not made any big moves in the past year. It's just that they keep recruiting rogue cultivators and have them harass the Jinhai sect's businesses. Now, in the core area of the myriad demon islands, several major forces are constantly fighting. There are a lot of rogue cultivators, so it's very easy for the Demon Flame sect to recruit them. Now, less than 20% of the Jinhai sect's businesses are still operating normally. If this continues, the Jinhai sect will collapse in a few decades without the Demon Flame sect doing anything." Xiaqin added, "The Golden Sand sect's situation is similar to the Jinhai sect's. It's just that most of our businesses are near the Golden Sand Island, so the demonic cultivators and half-demons don't dare to run rampant, so the losses are still bearable. Daoyu must have come up with a countermeasure. Please tell us and let's discuss it together." Lu Ziyuan nodded in response. "Fellow Daoist, Ye is indeed a straightforward person. I'm here to cooperate with the Golden Sand sect. Both sides will send out some Yuanying cultivators to counterattack the Demon Flame sect. We've been defending passively for a long time, and sooner or later there will be a big problem. Instead of passively taking a beating, it's better to take the initiative to attack and teach the Demon Flame sect a lesson." Wang Daoyuan asked, "The Demon Flame sect is not weak. Our two sects combined are still slightly weaker than them. It's already a bit difficult to defend, so how can we gain an advantage by attacking?" After learning that the Jinhai sect had a lot of hidden forces, Wang Daoyuan had always been on guard against them, afraid that they would fall into their trap. Lu Ziyuan waved his hand. "I know the strength of our two sections. Even if we go all out, we still won't have an advantage in a direct confrontation. Of course, we can't go head-to-head with the Demon Flame sect. This time we're not going to attack the Demon Flame sect, but the rogue cultivators who are harassing our businesses. The Demon Flame sect's Demon Flame Island is about 70,000 miles southwest of the Demon Slaying Island. The Golden Sand sect is north of the Demon Slaying Island, and the Jinhai sect is east of the Demon Slaying Island. Therefore, the cultivators who are harassing our businesses are definitely not from the Demon Flame Island. We've also sent people to keep an eye on the Demon Slaying Island. The rogue cultivators who are attacking our businesses are also not from the Demon Slaying Island. After our investigation, we finally found where these rogue cultivators are staying. It's Drifting Cloud Island, about 50,000 miles northeast of the Demon Slaying Island. The Jinhai sect also sent people to Drifting Cloud Island to investigate the situation. The island doesn't have a unified defense formation. The only defense method is the defensive restriction of each cave residence. These rogue cultivators usually fight for themselves. They don't trust each other and can't work together. Once we send people to attack Drifting Cloud Island, we'll definitely beat them to a pulp. They won't be harassing our businesses for a while, and we'll have precious time to rest. Chapter 776. Wang Daoyuan naturally had no objections to killing a few demonic cultivators and half-demons. If there was danger, he would flee. If there was no danger, he would continue to stay in the Golden Sand sect. There were as many materials for refining artifacts and pills as he wanted, and there was even a nascent cultivating pill every month. It would be a waste not to take these benefits. Wang Daoyuan didn't seem to care. Xie Qin replied, "This is a serious matter. I don't have the authority to make a decision. I'll report this to the sect master and grand elder, and they'll make the decision." Then he took out his elder token and sent the news back to Golden Sand Island. And Lin Tao and Mo Liangping were discussing how to deal with the demonic cultivators and half-demons in a hall at the Golden Sand sect's mountain gate. Suddenly, Lin Tao's token lit up. He checked it. The Jinhai sect suggested that the two sects send out people to wipe out the demonic cultivators and half-demons on Drifting Cloud Island. This way, the demonic cultivators and half-demons should be able to have some peace for a few years. Mo Liangping was a bit worried. There must be a lot of demonic cultivators and half-demons on Drifting Cloud Island to be able to harass our two sections. Our Golden Sand sect can only send out 3 Yuanian cultivators at most. The Jinhai sect doesn't have many Yuanian cultivators on the surface, only 7 or 8 at most. It's still a bit risky to take down Drifting Cloud Island with this number of people. And Lin Tao sighed. We have no choice. In the past year, the harassment has been getting worse and worse, and the two of us are starting to feel powerless. If we don't take drastic measures to completely eliminate the demonic cultivators and half-demons harassment, we won't be able to last long. It won't be long before we end up like the Sea Suppression sect, unable to make ends meet. The Golden Sand sect isn't as rich as the Jinhai sect, so we can't afford it. If we succeed in this battle, we'll have a few decades to catch our breath. If we lose, the Golden Sand sect will just disband sooner. Guard Golden Sand Island well. If we lose, use the backup plan left behind by the founder. I'll take Duze with me. Elder Wu is powerful at Demon Slaying Island. He's probably not weaker than us. After all, he doesn't have any feelings for the Golden Sand sect. I'm afraid you won't be able to suppress him. Just let him go with you. Mo Liangping shook his head repeatedly. Absolutely not. You're about to break through to the late stage of Yuanying. You should focus on your cultivation. You're much stronger than me. Even if you lose, you'll have no choice but to use the backup plan left behind by the founder. That way you'll have a greater chance of preserving the inheritance. How could he let the sect master do such a risky thing himself? The Jinhai sect was still the main force in wiping out Luyan Island. Whether you go or not, it won't affect your overall strength much. At this time, the most important thing is to protect the sect's legacy. Mo Liangping firmly disagreed, and Lin Tao didn't insist. Alright, you must stay alive. We've been supporting the sect for hundreds of years. As the senior brother, you can't be lazy and put all this heavy burden on me. Mo Liangping smiled and said, Don't worry. When Master was still alive, I often traveled outside. I know very well what kind of people those demonic cultivators and half-fiends are. Most of the opponents on Drifting Cloud Island were in the early Yuanying stage, and there were quite a few in the late Golden Core stage. With their strength, it's impossible for them to take me down. And Lin Tao nodded and sent a message to Xie Qin on Demon Slaying Island. After receiving the message, Xie Qin smiled and said, The sect master and grand elder both agreed to help. Lu Ziyuan's face lit up. Good, how many people can your sect send? Xie Qin replied, 3 people. Lu Ziyuan smiled and said, I'll report to the sect master now. Then he got up and left. Xie Qin was a little embarrassed. He asked Wang Daoyuan, Elder Wu, the grand elder, is leading the team to wipe out Drifting Cloud Island this time. Elder Du is also participating. I'll take charge of Demon Slaying Island. You'll go with the Grand Elder to Drifting Cloud Island. Guest elders were called elders, but they were actually high-level fighters. In such a situation, they naturally had to be put to good use. For Wang Daoyuan, going to Drifting Cloud Island was equivalent to picking up resources. He smiled and said, It's okay. Killing a few demonic cultivators is just a piece of cake. Xie Qin still felt that he had mistreated Wang Daoyuan. After all, he had already helped to kill 2 cultivators from the Demon Flame sect. The Golden Sand sect didn't do him any great favors, but he had risked his life for the sect twice. The next day, Lu Ziyuan came to the Golden Sand restaurant again. When he saw Wang Daoyuan and Xie Qin, he cupped his fists and said, Our sect master's intention is that in order to prevent the news from being leaked, we will depart from different directions and meet at the Crouching Tiger Reef 3,000 li west of Drifting Cloud Island. This matter should be done sooner rather than later. We'll meet at Crouching Tiger Reef in 3 days. Xie nodded. No problem. I'll report to the sect master now. After half a cup of tea's time, he received a reply from the sect master. Xie read it and smiled. The sect master has agreed. We'll meet at Crouching Tiger Reef in 3 days. Lu Ziyuan left with satisfaction. Wang Daoyuan also returned to the earth fire room and packed up his things. When going out on an adventure, one must be prepared to run away at any time. If he lost a battle, he would run away immediately. In any case, the Golden Sand sect didn't have anything like a soul lamp, only a guest elder token. As long as he destroyed the token, the Golden Sand sect would think that he had died in battle. They might even set up a memorial tablet for him in the ancestral hall. 2 days later, Wang Daoyuan greeted Xie and left Devil Slaying Island. Then he drove the Grade 4 flying ship and headed east. In order to hide, he controlled the speed. It took him half a day to arrive at Crouching Tiger Reef. At this time, there were already people waiting on Crouching Tiger Reef. These people all had the same aura as Lu Ziyuan. It seemed that it was because of their cultivation techniques. This meant that the Yuanian cultivators of the Jinhai sect all cultivated the Imperial Regency's cultivation techniques. This Jinhai sect was actually the Imperial Regency's Myriad Demon Islands branch. There were 7 people on Crouching Tiger Reef. There were 2 mid-stage Yuanian cultivators and 5 early-stage Yuanian cultivators. Lu Ziyuan was among them. Seeing that Wang Daoyuan had arrived, Lu Ziyuan hurriedly went up to greet him. Wu Daoyu has a strong physical body and is quite powerful. This time we will have to rely on Daoyu. Then he led him to 2 mid-stage Yuanian cultivators and introduced him. This is Elder Qi and this is Elder Li. Elder Qi had a small figure. He wore a loose robe and a veil on his face, only revealing his eyes. There was a strong corpse and death aura on his body. He should be a zombie refiner. Elder Li had a medium build and wore a white robe. He had a fiery aura unique to weapon refiners. Wang Daoyuan greeted the 2 of them. Elder Qi remained silent. Elder Li, on the other hand, was full of smiles. Elder Wu is indeed extraordinary. To be able to kill Blood Sea Spiritual Master, your strength is probably not below Elder Qi and me. Wang Daoyuan also smiled and said, Elder Li, you flatter me. My cultivation is still too low. The reason why I was able to kill Taoist Blood Sea was because of my cultivation technique. My true strength is still lacking compared to the 2 elders. Elder Qi was silent. His eyes were fixed on Wang Daoyuan as if he was looking at prey. Wang Daoyuan became wary of Elder Qi. This guy most likely saw his strong physical body and wanted to capture him to refine into a corpse puppet. This made him more determined to escape. The Imperial Regency had many tricks up their sleeves. It would not be good to be targeted by them. At this moment, a 4th-grade flying ship came from the northwest and landed on Crouching Tiger Reef. Mo Liangping and Du Zhe came down from the flying ship and greeted everyone. Elder Li cupped his hands. Elder Mo, we have not seen each other for many years. In the early years before we broke through the Yuanian realm, we traveled together. Now we can finally fight side by side. Mo Liangping sighed. 400 to 500 years have passed in a flash. There are not many Daoyu left. It is not easy to get the chance to fight side by side today. Like before, Brother Li has the final say on how to fight. In that case, I will not be polite. We have already sent out spirit insects to investigate the situation on Drifting Cloud Island. It will not be too late to make a move when the spirit insects return. After a quarter of an hour, buzzing sounds could be heard. It was as if there were tens of thousands of spirit insects flapping their wings. Chapter 777. Wang Daoyuan probed with his divine sense and saw countless spirit insects flying over. These spirit insects were the size of rice grains and looked a little like ladybugs. They were pitch black and carried yin qi. Their cultivation levels were not high. They were all low-grade tier 3. However, their flying speed was even faster than the soul-chasing bees. The soul-chasing bee king had already reached high-grade tier 3 and had not broken through. A small number of ordinary soul-chasing bees had broken through to mid-grade tier 3, but most of them were still low-grade tier 3. Even those mid-grade tier 3 soul-chasing bees were only slightly faster than late-stage golden core cultivators. However, the spirit insects in front of him were as fast as early-stage Yuanian cultivators. Even a tier 5 flying ship could not beat these spirit insects. An early-stage Yuanian cultivator of the Jinhai sect waved his hand and gathered the spirit insects. This cultivator communicated with the spirit insects for a few minutes and said, "There are 23 Yuanian cultivators on Drifting Cloud Island. Among them there are 5 mid-stage Yuanian cultivators. The rest are early-stage Yuanine cultivators. There are no late-stage Yuanine cultivators. There are no traces of a large array formation on the island. It's just that it's surrounded by clouds and mist, so it's not easy to find enemies. However, my ghost insects are good at finding enemies. Few below the Soul Formation realm can avoid detection. Hearing this, Wang Daoyuan was a little vigilant. The ghost insects could detect the traces of cultivators below the Soul Formation realm. He wondered if he could avoid detection with the Black Demon Robe and the Hidden Devil Art. Elder Qi had evil intentions toward him. If he had the ghost insects, it would be difficult to escape. Elderly stroked his beard and smiled. In that case, Martial Nephew Soul Slayer will point out the targets. Everyone, Daoyu, we have the situation on Drifting Cloud Island under control. Although we are at a disadvantage in numbers, our individual strength is stronger. Most of these fiendish cultivators and half-demons were itinerant cultivators. They might not be our match in a one-on-one battle. We can also use the ghost insects to defeat them one by one. Of course, he was just cheering everyone on. For a rogue cultivator to be able to cultivate to the nascent soul stage, his strength was not necessarily weak. Their cultivation methods and spells might not be brilliant, but they definitely had a lot of insidious and strange tricks. Elderly took out a 5th-grade flying boat. The cultivators of the Jinhai sect boarded the flying boat and headed east. Wang Daoyuan also boarded Mo Liangping's flying boat and followed closely behind. The Drifting Cloud Island was relatively small, less than 1,000 miles in length from north to south and 300 to 400 miles in width from east to west. On the island, there was a mid-grade Tier 5 water spirit vein. There were also a few hot springs that produced a large amount of mist. About 80% of Drifting Cloud Island was covered by clouds and mist. If someone was hiding in the clouds, it would not be easy to find them with ordinary methods. The 2 flying ships soon arrived at the northern end of the island. According to Venerable Soul Slayer's investigation, there should be a mid-stage Yuanine cultivator and 2 early-stage Yuanine cultivators here. There were 10 Yuanine cultivators here, so it wasn't difficult for them to get rid of these people first. Everyone retracted their auras and left the flying ship. They quietly approached the cave abodes of the 3 Yuanine itinerant cultivators. Mo Liangping, Elder Qi, and Elderly would naturally deal with the mid-stage Yuanine cultivator. Wang Daoyuan, Du Zhe, and Lu Ziyuan would deal with the early-stage Yuanine cultivator. The 3 of them arrived at the entrance of a cave abode. Elderly transmitted his voice and ordered everyone to attack together. There was no time to slowly break the formation in this kind of sneak attack. Lu Ziyuan took out a gray pearl. Under the activation of his spirit power, it emitted a gray light that shone on the formation at the entrance. The flow of spirit power in the formation rapidly slowed down. He transmitted his voice to Wang Daoyuan. Wu Daoyu, I've already suppressed this formation. It can't withstand a single attack from a mid-stage Yuanine cultivator. I'll leave the rest to you. Wang Daoyuan took out his black dragon halberd and smashed it at the defensive formation at the entrance with all his might. With a loud bang, the cave abode's formation shattered. The 2 stone doors were also sent flying. Du Zhe was a little rash. He cast a defensive spell, propped up his protective aura, took out a shield and rushed in. Wang Daoyuan and the Jinhai sect cultivators followed closely behind. The cave abode was suddenly smashed open, and 3 cultivators of the same level barged in. The itinerant cultivators in the cave abode were a little stunned. Of course, the Yuanine cultivator reacted very quickly. He took out a long sword and was about to attack. Wang Daoyuan exerted strength in his legs and rushed forward with his halberd. The nascent soul cultivator was caught off guard by the sudden sneak attack. He only had time to take out a shield and cast his protective aura. He was not a physical cultivator. He took Wang Daoyuan's attack head-on and was sent flying. The shield was not bad. It was not damaged at all after being hit by the black dragon halberd. The itinerant cultivator crashed into the cave abode's stone wall and was bounced back down. After this exchange, he knew that he was no match for him. He instantly turned into a cloud of black smoke and fled out of the cave abode. This was the Yin demon's escape technique. It was not easy to chase after him. Wang Daoyuan was about to use his feather blade when Lu Ziyuan took out a golden rope. After injecting spiritual power, the rope shone with a dazzling golden light. At the same time, it emitted an extremely rich dragon aura. It looked like it was refined from the dragon tendons of a flood dragon. It was easy to use this thing against a fiendish cultivator. The golden rope wrapped around the black smoke and tightened. After a while, the black smoke dissipated. A tied-up itinerant cultivator fell to the ground. He struggled with all his might, but the more he struggled, the tighter the rope became. Lu Ziyuan mocked, "Don't waste your energy. This rope is refined from the dragon tendons of 5 flood dragons. It's easy to tie up a mid-stage Yuanying blood fiendish cultivator. You're just a Yin demon with a weak body. There's no way you can break free." With that, he lifted the fiendish cultivator and the 3 of them walked out of the cave abode together. At this time, the other 2 groups had also finished off their opponents. However, the commotion had alerted the other itinerant cultivators. Soon a loud shout came from the south. "Who dares to cause trouble on Drifting Cloud Island?" They had taken down 3 Yuanying fiendish cultivators and a mid-stage Yuanying cultivator with a sneak attack. It was not a loss. Since they had been exposed, they had no intention of hiding anymore. The 3 mid-stage Yuanying cultivators flew into the air and attacked the person who had shouted. Elder Qi also took out a mid-stage 5th grade refined corpse. Elder Li also took out a mid-stage 5th grade puppet. Mo Liangping was a little shabbier. He could only take out a long sword and a shield. The person who had shouted also realized that something was wrong. He shouted, "The Xinhai sect is attacking us." With that, he used his escape technique to escape. The group of early-stage Yuanying cultivators also attacked. Wang Daoyuan felt uneasy as if his life was in danger. When cultivators reached the golden core stage, they would sometimes have a premonition of impending danger. When one reached the Yuanying stage and had a deeper understanding of the laws, this premonition would be more accurate. Being uneasy meant that danger was about to happen. It was just that he was uneasy, but not to the extent that he felt that disaster was imminent. This meant that it was not extremely dangerous. Of course, he had to be careful. Wang Daoyuan prioritized self-preservation. He would never face any fiendish cultivator or half-demon alone to avoid being noticed by an expert. Although Du Zhe was reckless, he was not stupid. He kept following Wang Daoyuan. The 2 of them chased after a half-demon with a mouth full of sharp teeth and not a single hair on his head. This fellow's skin was grayish-white and looked a little like a shark. He probably had the bloodline of a shark. However, his fighting strength was only so. Wang Daoyuan did not use his full strength, but he still managed to beat this fellow into a pulp. Although there were more fiendish cultivators and half-demons, the cultivators of the Xinhai sect could not be counted as a single person. These cultivators had refined corpses, spirit beasts, and puppets. They could be used as 2 or even 3 people. In addition, the mid-stage Yuanying cultivators had the advantage in numbers. Wang Daoyuan chased after the half-demon for the time it took to brew a cup of tea. Not only did his uneasiness not disappear, but it also worsened. He wanted to play dead and escape immediately. At that moment, a burst of laughter came from outside the island. "Brats of the Xinhai sect, you've been tricked." Then laughter came from all sides of the island. They seemed to have been surrounded. Chapter 778. They were surrounded on all sides so they wouldn't be too weak. Either they had a lot of people or they were strong enough to stop the people inside. Wang Daoyuan was glad that he didn't reveal too much of his strength. Lu Ziyuan had also killed the rogue cultivator he captured earlier, so not many people would notice him now. Elder Li shouted, "The Demon Flame sect is already under our watch. It's impossible for them to send a large number of people here. Which scoundrel dares to play tricks here?" An old voice outside the island mocked, "The Demon Flame sect isn't the only one who wants to destroy the Xinhai sect. You can only blame yourselves for being too domineering. In the past, you relied on the Imperial Regency to make enemies everywhere on the Demon Islands. Over the past tens of thousands of years, countless half-demons and demonic cultivators have been killed. All the demonic cultivators and half-demons on the Demon Islands can't wait to swallow you alive. You've been getting worse and worse over the years, so the big forces can't be bothered with you. Otherwise, all the forces on the Demon Islands would have come out together to destroy the Xinhai sect." From the sound of it, this group of people wasn't from the Demon Flame sect, but some other force. This time, the cultivators of the Xinhai sect and the Golden Sand sect were like turtles in a jar. Previously, they guessed that the Xinhai sect was the backup of the Imperial Regency. They were very rich and had a lot of hidden strength. Even if all 7 cultivators died here, it wouldn't be a big deal. However, the Golden Sand sect was in a more difficult situation. The cultivators here were already half of the sect's strength. Once they died here, it would be difficult for them to survive. Wang Daoyuan could protect himself with the black magic robe and the demon concealment art, but it was unrealistic to protect the others. It depended on how much strength the Xinhai sect could force out from this battle. Elder Li of the Xinhai sect said to everyone, "Don't tangle with these demonic cultivators anymore. gather together and break out of the encirclement in the north. He wanted to take advantage of the fact that the other party's people hadn't gathered together to concentrate their strength and rush out. However, they were now fighting with more than 20 demonic cultivators. If they retreated, the demonic cultivators behind them would catch up. At that time they would be blocked in front and chased from behind. It was very likely that they would be wiped out. Elderly naturally knew the consequences of doing this. He was betting. He was betting that these rogue cultivators wouldn't have the guts to stop him. The 10 people on this side rushed out with all their might. The people in front did not dare to stop them, so more than half of them were able to escape. Under such circumstances, it was already pretty good that more than half of them managed to escape. Of course, the best way was to leave a few people behind to stall the 20 or so devil cultivators who were originally on Drifting Cloud Island. Cover the others and force their way out. However, the latter would undoubtedly die. No one was willing to do such a thing. Rushing out together was their only option. Everyone immediately gathered together and attacked towards the north. Wang Daoyuan was especially experienced in running away. Back then, his first battle after leaving the mountain was a great escape. When they rushed out of the encirclement, they couldn't be the first to stand out. They couldn't fall behind either, as it would be easy for them to be killed by their pursuers. Their position was just right. Everyone rushed out of Drifting Cloud Island. Without the obstruction of the clouds, they could clearly see the cultivators outside. There were 3 Yuanying middle-stage cultivators in the north. They were muscular, had silver-gray skin, and didn't have a single strand of hair. Their teeth were triangular and there were small serrations on the edges. They were similar to shark teeth. They should be shark half-demons. Elderly shouted angrily, "The Silver Shark tribe dares to meddle in our affairs? They're courting death." He didn't stay idle either. He rushed forward with a puppet. Elder Qi brought along his refined corpse and followed closely behind. Mo Liangping sent a voice transmission to Wang Daoyuan and asked him to take care of Du Zhe. Then he rushed forward as well. The early-stage Yuanying cultivators followed closely behind. Although Wang Daoyuan didn't have much affection for the Golden Sand sect, he had a good impression of the 4 Yuanying cultivators of the Golden Sand sect. Over the past 2 years they had taken good care of him. They had a lot of resources and even passed down alchemy and crafting inheritances. Even though he didn't have a sense of belonging to the Golden Sand sect, he still treated the 4 of them as friends. When a friend was in trouble, he naturally had to help if he could. Wang Daoyuan and Du Zhe had been chasing a weak half-demon. Now it was convenient for them to escape. The 2 of them followed closely behind the 3 mid-stage Yuanying cultivators and headed north. The demonic cultivators who had been fighting with them naturally wouldn't just stand by and watch. They all attacked from behind. Especially the shark half-demon who had been bullied by Wang Daoyuan. Now that he had found a chance to take revenge, he naturally wouldn't give it up. He attacked Wang Daoyuan and Du Zhe with all his might, wanting to keep them here. Du Zhe also had a bad temper. After being harassed by the half-demon, he wanted to turn around and kill him. Wang Daoyuan grabbed him and swung his black dragon halberd, sending the half-demon flying. The half-demon crashed into a mountain rock and spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. He had suffered serious internal injuries. The other demonic cultivators didn't dare to harass the 2 of them anymore. The 3 mid-stage Yuanying cultivators blocking their way were also held back. The 2 of them quickly escaped. At this moment, the demonic cultivators behind them had already closed in. Mo Liangping was in danger of being surrounded. Wang Daoyuan condensed 300 silver feathers and attacked Mo Liangping's opponent. At the same time he transmitted a message to him. The Zhenhai sect is extremely powerful. They can easily destroy these people with some trump cards. If these people die here, the Zhenhai sect won't be affected too much. But if you and Du Zhe die here, the Golden Sand sect won't even be able to protect themselves. His opponent had no choice but to turn around and block the feathers. He gave up on fighting with him. After hearing Wang Daoyuan's transmission, Mo Liangping also took the opportunity to escape north. Of course he was more righteous. After breaking out, he continued to cast spells to attack the half-demons blocking their way and help the Zhenhai sect cultivators escape. Wang Daoyuan also continued to cast his feather blades and supported him from the side. Only 2 of the Zhenhai sect cultivators managed to escape. The others, including the 2 elders, were being held back by the demonic cultivators and half-demons. These 3 half-demons of the Silver Shark tribe were only hiding in the north. There were people lying in ambush in the other 3 directions. Now that the 2 sects were breaking out of the encirclement in the north, the cultivators lying in ambush in the other 3 directions would quickly close in. At that time, it would be even more difficult to escape. Elder Li and Elder Qi transmitted a message to each other. Then the two of them each took out a human-shaped object. Elder Li took out a puppet holding a long sword. It emitted a 5th-level upper-grade spirit energy wave. Elder Qi took out a 5th-level upper-grade refined corpse. The strength of these two fellows wasn't inferior to that of an average late-stage Yuanian cultivator. As soon as they appeared, the rogue cultivators who were still fighting with them immediately relaxed their attacks and quickly distanced themselves. The early-stage Yuanian cultivators of the Jinhai sect also managed to escape. Elder Li and Elder Qi also dared to stop attacking now. However, it wouldn't be easy to escape. Another 6 mid-stage Yuanian cultivators rushed over from the south. They should be the cultivators who were lying in ambush on the east and west sides of the island. Elder Li and Elder Qi broke away from the half-demons and let the refined corpses and puppets bring up the rear. They took out their flying boat and fled north with the Jinhai sect cultivators. Wang Daoyuan and the other two had escaped earlier. They weren't held back by the demonic cultivators and half-demons. They took the flying boat and ran at the front. The refined corpses and puppets brought up the rear naturally didn't have any hope of escaping the encirclement of the demonic cultivators and half-demons. They didn't lose any cultivators in this battle. They only lost 2 refined corpses and 2 puppets. At this moment, huge waves suddenly surged from the sea below. 2 sharks hundreds of feet long jumped out of the huge waves and bit at the flying boat. They didn't fly high and the 2 sharks appeared too suddenly. The flying boat couldn't dodge them. The cultivators abandoned the flying boat and hurriedly used escape techniques to avoid the sharks' bloody mouths. Wang Daoyuan condensed the phantom of a true dragon and flew to the side. Mo Liangping easily dodged and dragged Du Zhe, who didn't react in time, away. On the Jinhai sect's side, an early-stage Yuanian cultivator was injured earlier and couldn't dodge this attack. He died in the shark's mouth. Everyone scattered and fled. Wang Daoyuan also saw an opportunity to escape. He helped to deal with the cultivators of the Demon Flame sect before. This time he saved Mo Liangping and Du Zhe. He had already repaid the favor. He didn't have any psychological burden to escape now. He didn't care about the others and fled north. Chapter 779. There were about 30 demonic cultivators and half-demons in total. With the addition of the 2 sharks, the cultivators of the 2 sects were at a complete disadvantage. They had no chance of winning if they continued to stay. The demonic cultivators and half-demons chased after them in different directions. With 3 times the number advantage, they weren't afraid of splitting up. A mid-stage Yuanian demonic cultivator asked, "The Demon Flame sect sent news that a cultivator with a black halberd killed Blood Sea Taoist. We all know Blood Sea Taoist's strength, he's not inferior to us. This person was unharmed after killing Blood Sea Taoist, he's probably stronger than us. That brat fled to the north, Daoyu, who's going to chase him?" A silver shark half-demon sneered, "This person's movement technique is extremely fast and he has a dense dragon chi. We half-demons with the bloodline of the sea race tremble in fear. You demonic cultivators should also be afraid of this thing, no one is confident of winning. This person only killed Blood Sea Taoist, my nephew was only injured in the fight and didn't lose his life. He has no enmity with our silver shark tribe, we won't take the risk to chase him. Besides, this person is extremely fast. Even if we chase him we might return empty-handed, why waste time?" The mid-stage Yuanian demonic cultivator smiled. "In that case, we rogue cultivators don't need to meddle in other people's business. We're only doing this for money, we're not disciples of the Demon Flame sect. Blood Sea Taoist's death has nothing to do with us. It's better to chase after the disciples of the Jinhai sect and the Golden Sand sect. These people's strength is only SOSO, as long as we can kill one of them, we'll get tens of thousands of high-grade spirit stones. As for that black halberd brat, send the sharks to chase after him, lest the Demon Flame sect use this as an excuse." The silver shark tribe half-demon nodded and transmitted his voice to a huge shark. The demonic cultivators and half-demons scattered and chased in different directions. Wang Daoyuan didn't know about the situation at Drifting Cloud Island. He wrapped himself in the true dragon's shadow and flew north for more than 10,000 miles before taking out a grade 5 flying boat and heading northeast. He also took out the guest elder token of the Golden Sand sect and crushed it. Previously he had saved Mo Liangping and Du Zhe once. As long as one of them could escape, his memorial tablet would definitely be placed in the ancestral hall of the Golden Sand sect. Previously, when the flying boat was attacked by the giant shark, it was also an ambush in advance. Now that he was escaping, the speed of the shark was too slow and it couldn't catch up to him. During the 2 years that Wang Daoyuan had been in the Golden Sand sect, he had also obtained a lot of information about the Demon Islands. Unfortunately, the Golden Sand sect was not a major force. They had always been active around the Golden Sand Island and only knew about the situation within hundreds of thousands of miles. He had killed Taoist Blood Sea of the Demon Flame sect. If he didn't run far away, the Demon Flame sect would find trouble with him. Now that there was nothing else to do, it was better to find a secluded place to cultivate properly. It would be too uncomfortable to have someone looking for trouble all day long. Meanwhile, the cultivators of the Jinhai sect and the Golden Sand sect who were running for their lives were not as free as he was. There were more than 30 people surrounding 8 people. On average, each person had to face about 4 opponents of the same level. Mo Liangping and Du Zhe were still fine. After being saved by Wang Daoyuan, they had been running at the front. Chasing them was the most difficult. If they had the time, they might as well take down the cultivators of the Jinhai sect first. The bounty of the cultivators of the Golden Sand sect was far less than that of the cultivators of the Jinhai sect. After flying for thousands of miles, Mo Liangping and Du Zhe saw that there were no giant sharks chasing after them. Du Zhe took out another flying boat. The two of them boarded the flying boat and flew toward the sect gate. The cultivators of the Jinhai sect were not so lucky. They hadn't run far in the first place, and now it was even harder to escape. Elder Li and Elder Qi were not in the mood to rescue the others. They each used their escape techniques to escape. As Yuanying cultivators and high-ranking elders of the Jinhai sect, they still had many life-saving methods. After escaping for thousands of miles, they took out their flying boats again and ran for their lives. The other cultivators of the Jinhai sect were not so lucky. With their early-stage Yuanying cultivation, they could not escape the pursuit of mid-stage Yuanying fiendish cultivators and half-demons. After struggling for a short while, they all died in battle. Even Lu Ziyuan, whom Wang Daoyuan was familiar with, did not escape the disaster. After escaping for tens of thousands of miles in the northeast direction, Wang Daoyuan encountered a large island with many cultivators on it. This place was still too close to Drifting Cloud Island. These cultivators might have connections with the Demon Flame sect. He did not stay on this island. Instead, he turned around and headed east a few thousand miles away from the island. After running for half a day, he finally found a relatively barren island. This island was also a small volcanic island with a radius of about 10 miles. There was not a single blade of grass on the island. There was only a mid-grade level 5 fire spirit vein. There were no large islands within tens of thousands of miles. Ordinary cultivators would not even be able to obtain cultivation resources on such an island. Naturally, no one would stay on this island. This kind of environment happened to be Wang Daoyuan's favorite. Moreover, this place was slightly north of the demon-slaying island. It was at least tens of thousands of miles away from the demon-slaying island. The Demon Flame sect's mountain gate was tens of thousands of miles southwest of the demon-slaying island. It was more than 200,000 miles away from here. There was also the Jinhai sect in the middle. It was unlikely that they would cause trouble here. Wang Daoyuan came to the top of the island. The lava here was more stable. He entered the crater of the volcano and released a wisp of dust-returning flame. It burned a cave on the wall beside the lava lake. There was nothing urgent to do now. There was no need for him to take risks. He would slowly cultivate on this barren island. First, he would raise his cultivation to mid-stage Yuanying. When the 5 elemental essence matured, he would be able to use the 3 treasures tool nurturing technique to nurture a new natal dharma artifact. As for returning to Beiyuan Xiuxian, it was useless to go back now. The nascent formation fruit would take a few more decades to mature. Even if he went back now, he would not be able to help Zhou Wan form her nascent soul. Moreover, he would not be able to find any level 5 materials or elixirs. Instead of going back to wait for the nascent formation fruit to mature, it was better to collect more materials here and return when the nascent formation fruit was about to mature. His family was protected by his master, Lei Yanjinren, so no one would dare to touch him. He would draw out the red yang primordial fire and dust-returning flame to ignite the lava lake below. He would consume the nascent cultivating pill and slowly cultivate using the spiritual energy in the flames. 10 years later, Wang Daoyuan's body was shining with 5-colored light. There was a 4-inch 9 centimeters tall baby lying on top of his head. The baby kept absorbing the spiritual energy in the lava lake. After a while, the baby's body trembled violently. Then its height gradually increased until it was 7 inches tall. At this moment, the baby entered Wang Daoyuan's body. The 5-colored light was completely withdrawn. The fluctuation of spiritual energy had increased by a large margin, reaching the level of intermediate Yuanying. It had been more than 20 years since he broke through to the Yuanying stage. Such a speed was rare. He had consumed 60 to 70 nascent cultivating pills and absorbed an unknown amount of spiritual energy from the lava. If all this spiritual energy was provided by high-grade spirit stones, it would probably bankrupt a sect like the Golden Sand sect. It was also thanks to the spiritual energy seed. An ordinary early Yuanying stage cultivator would not be able to absorb so much spiritual energy even in 50 years, let alone 20 years. After breaking through, he continued to extract spiritual energy from the flames to stabilize his cultivation. 2 days later, the fluctuation of spiritual energy in his body had become very stable. Within the space of the spiritual pearl, the 5 spiritual veins had also grown to intermediate level 5. The earth essence was the first to merge with the spiritual veins and had completely merged with them. As the earth spiritual vein evolved, so did the earth essence. The E-wood essence had also reached lower level 5. With the nourishment of the intermediate level 5 wood spiritual vein, it did not take long for it to evolve. The leaf fire essence was originally only 1 inch long. After being nourished by the spiritual vein for so many years, it had also improved. Now it had grown another 3 inches long. However, the newly grown portion did not reach lower level 6. It was only intermediate level 5. After all, it was nourished by the intermediate level 5 wood spiritual vein and could not directly grow into a level 6 fey. Chapter 780. Out of the 5 spiritual fires in the space, only the dust returning flame was still of upper grade level 4. The Gui water death flame and the Tai golden flame had been nourished by the upper grade level 5 elements essence and had advanced. The earth element essence was still the original one and could not help the dust returning flame to advance. Even if it lacked that special energy, the surrounding environment was filled with level 5 spirit chi. It would still be of some use. Now that the dust returning flame had shown signs of advancing, it should not be a problem for it to become a level 5 spiritual fire. In the past 10 years, the amount of water in the spirit spring near the water spirit vein had increased tremendously. Even though the clone had dug many canals to irrigate more than 20 acres of spirit fields, it was still unable to use up all the spring water. He had already thought of a method. He would let the clone dig a large puddle on the newly added spirit field at the north end of the spirit pearl space. As the amount of water increased, the size of the puddle also increased. Now the puddle occupied more than 3 acres. Unfortunately, the yin chi in the water was too dense and he could not raise fish in it. He could only plant some inky jade lotus and some yellow spring willows in the shallow water. The puddle became Yun Yi's territory. Every day she would bathe, swim, absorb the pure yin chi and eat some lotus seeds. Her life was very comfortable. Wang Daoyuan did not plan to go out now. In the 7 Stars Secret Realms Ziwei Palace, there was a part of the puppet arts refining method. Previously he did not have the time to refine it. Now that he had enough time, he could give it a try. There were many uses for puppets. Although low-grade puppets could not participate in battles, they could still be used to take care of the spirit fields, especially on the family side. After obtaining the Green Willow Secret Realm, they did not have enough manpower to take care of it. If he could have a large number of level 1 and level 2 puppets to take care of the spirit fields, he could develop the entire secret realm. There was no problem with the supply of spiritual power. Taking care of the spirit fields consumed very little spiritual power. With the spirit gathering pearl, as long as there was sufficient spirit chi in the outside world, the spirit gathering pearl would not lack spiritual power. The puppets could continue working until they were damaged. Wang Daoyuan started refining level 1 puppets. The puppets could be divided into 3 parts: the outer layer, the core, and the connecting structure. The outer layer could be completely solved with the tool refining technique. This was not difficult for Wang Daoyuan. The core was to use Yellow Springs willow and other special materials to refine something similar to a human sea of consciousness. The connection structure was to use the core to control the external channel, just like humans and birds, fish and insects. With just a thought, he didn't need to consume his spiritual sense. His body would complete the thought. Puppets naturally needed a similar channel. Otherwise, if one were to rely solely on divine sense to control the puppet, no matter how strong the core was, it wouldn't be able to withstand it. The device that provided spiritual power was also a part of the connecting structure. The connection structure was rather complicated. There were tool patterns, array patterns, and some special patterns that were similar to the spiritual energy conversion device of the 4th grade flying warship. Of course, low-level puppets had fewer special patterns, so it was nothing to Wang Daoyuan. The most difficult thing was to find something similar to a soul in the core. He couldn't really catch a soul and put it inside. Naturally, it would not be easy to create something with some soul functions using other materials. For the first time, Wang Daoyuan didn't try anything too difficult. He only wanted to create a rank 1 puppet that could harvest spirit grains. The simpler the function, the simpler the tool: inscriptions, formation inscriptions, and special inscriptions. The outer layer was nothing more than refining a pile of first-grade magic tool parts and assembling them into a human shape. With Wang Daoyuan's current cultivation, refining a first-grade magic tool was no different from playing around. In less than half a day, he finished refining all the outer layer parts of the puppet. Although the connection structure was slightly more difficult, there were fewer inscriptions that needed to be carved. For someone like him who could refine a 4th-grade flying warship alone, it was nothing. It only took him 4 hours to complete the refinement. The core wasn't difficult either. The inscriptions were mainly special. After all, it had to imitate a person's sea of consciousness. There were more special inscriptions, so it was much harder to refine than the outer layer and the connecting parts. Also, the core had special requirements for the materials. For ordinary cultivators, refining this was the most difficult thing. After all, the materials were hard to find. Of course, a rank 1 puppet couldn't stump Wang Daoyuan, who was a middle-stage Yuanian cultivator with 4th-grade elixir, tool, and talisman arrays. It only took him a day to complete the refinement of the puppet core. This was his first time refining, so he was still unfamiliar with it. Once he became more familiar with it, the refining time would be reduced by more than half. After these physical parts were finished, all that was left were the incorporeal parts. There was only a sea of consciousness without a soul, so it couldn't be used. Next, he had to refine a puppet soul. This thing was similar to a soul. In a puppet, it was equivalent to the souls of humans and other living creatures. When the puppet was doing something, it was completely up to the puppet's soul to command it. Refining a puppet soul required the use of a demon beast soul. All of its consciousness and instincts would be erased, and it would be transformed into an extremely pure soul. Then, the soul would be stored in the sea of consciousness. Using his divine sense, he would inscribe the tasks that the puppet needed to do into the soul. This method was very similar to ghost cultivation. The difference was that ghost cultivation dealt with human souls, while puppet cultivation dealt with demon beast souls. Because puppet cultivation required the erasure of all memories and instincts, if the soul was strong enough, the lower the intelligence, the better. It was more convenient to use a demon beast soul than a human soul. Puppets couldn't use divine sense attacks, so the soul's strength wasn't high. For a rank 1 puppet soul, any beast soul would do. Especially for this kind of relatively simple puppet, any unranked flying insect would suffice. Wang Daoyuan used the soul of an ordinary fish in the space of the spirit pearl. It only took him 2 hours to refine it into a puppet soul. If it was a high-level combat puppet, the difficulty of refining a soul would be especially high. Not only was the soul's strength required, but it also had to go through a long period of nurturing. During this period, a large amount of purine chi would be consumed. For the sword cultivator puppets in the Purple Star Palace of the 7-Star Secret Realm, it was even more difficult to let the puppet soul comprehend sword intent. Ordinary forces didn't have the confidence to refine a large number of puppets. Once the puppet soul was integrated into the puppet core that was refined in advance and all the parts were combined, the puppet would be formed. The entire puppet was about 3 feet tall. Its appearance was roughly that of a human, and it held a low-grade rank 1 scythe in its hand. The appearance didn't affect the function much, so he didn't spend too much time refining it. It looked rather rough. After that, Wang Daoyuan used his divine sense to awaken the puppet soul. The puppet began to move slowly. Basic movements such as walking and waving were not a problem. Wang Daoyuan put it into the space of the spirit pearl. In order to allow the soul-chasing bees to have a sufficient honey source at all times, the spirit grains in the space were planted at different times so that they would ripen at any time. After the puppet entered the space of the spirit pearl, it automatically looked for ripened spirit grains and waved the scythe in its hand to harvest them. In order to make it easier to refine, this puppet didn't have the function of threshing and storing grains. It was already a successful puppet that could identify ripened spirit grains and harvest them. Wang Daoyuan wanted to continue refining, but an uninvited guest suddenly appeared on the volcanic island. It wasn't a human but a group of flying insects. He wasn't unfamiliar with these flying insects. They were the ghost worms that the Jinhai sect's Soul Slayer released on Drifting Cloud Island. These guys were very good at hiding. Wang Daoyuan only discovered them when they were near the island. The ghost worms were good at searching. His whereabouts had already been exposed. His divine sense exploded and killed most of the ghost worms, but a few ghost worms that were further away escaped. These things were extremely fast. It would take a lot of effort to catch up to them. Moreover, the master of the ghost worms was definitely not far from here. He was afraid that he would encounter their master before he could catch up to them. Without knowing the strength of his opponent, it was better to avoid them for now. Chapter 781. Wang Daoyuan cleaned up the traces in the stone room and left the crater. He took out a 5th-grade flying boat and flew east. Less than a quarter of an hour after leaving this place, a flying boat came from the southwest and landed on this small volcanic island. 2 cultivators came down from the flying boat. One of them was wearing a black robe and was surrounded by death aura. He looked like an evil cultivator. The other person was wearing a white robe and looked like a righteous cultivator. The 2 of them scanned the crater with their divine senses. The black-robed cultivator smiled and said, "It seems that we didn't find the wrong place. That kid really escaped here. A righteous cultivator should be under 500 years old, but his body is so strong." Blood Sea Immortal cultivated the blood demon technique and refined his body with the blood essence of fierce beasts. His 800 years of cultivation were not as good as this person. In this situation he might have a special physique or some fortuitous encounter. Of course, his body tempering technique is definitely not bad. Our Jinhai sect has many kinds of techniques, but we don't have any superior body tempering techniques. His body tempering technique can actually restrain demonic cultivators and half-demons. If we can capture him and force him to give us the inheritance, we can make up for the lack of inheritance. With such a strong body, if we can refine him into a corpse puppet, he might be able to grow to the 6th level in the future. Elderly, if we can get this technique, we will be great contributors to the Jinhai sect. The white-robed cultivator also nodded. This Wu Chuan once fought side by side with us, so he can be considered a friend. Our Jinhai sect has never killed an ally. Force him to give us the technique and let him go. Elder Qi, I've already broken the sect's rules by agreeing to help you subdue him. If you must kill him, then I'll leave now. Elder Qi sighed. You people are too rigid. For the sake of the sect's revival, what's the point of sacrificing a rogue cultivator of unknown origin? Forget it, I won't argue with a stubborn donkey like you. As long as he obediently hands over the inheritance, I'll let him go. After saying that, he released a few ghost worms. The ghost worms circled around the island a few times and then flew east. Elder Qi said, "This kid ran east. We have to catch him as soon as possible. If we go further east, we will enter the territory of the White Bone Palace. At that time, we will inevitably encounter a lot of trouble." Elderly had no objections. The 2 of them boarded the flying boat and continued to chase eastward. Elder Qi continued to release ghost worms to confirm Wang Daoyuan's location. The flying boat they were on was of a higher grade than Wang Daoyuan's flying boat. Its speed was also much faster. The distance between the 2 parties was getting closer and closer. Half a day later, the Jinhai sect's flying boat caught up with Wang Daoyuan in a sea without any trace of an island. Elderly walked to the bow of the boat and shouted, "Wu Daoyu, I'm Li Xingzong from the Jinhai sect. Daoyu, please stop the boat for a chat." Wang Daoyuan walked to the stern of the ship and smiled. This place is already 200,000 li away from the Jinhai sect. What brings Elderly here? Li Xingzong replied, "During the battle on Drifting Cloud Island, Daoyu went missing. We were a little worried, so we sent people to look for him. After more than 10 years we finally found him. Daoyu, please return with us so that our 2 sects can work together to deal with the Demon Flame sect." This was pure nonsense. Not to mention an early-stage Yuanine cultivator, even a late-stage Yuanine cultivator wouldn't be worth so much effort. Elderly, I'm afraid you found the wrong person. I'm just a guest elder of the Golden Sand sect. No one has the right to interfere with where I want to go. I'm going to travel eastward. Daoyu, please return. Elder Qi didn't have the patience and said angrily, "Elderly, this kid is a stone in a latrine pit. It's a waste of time to discuss things with him. Brat surnamed Wu, hand over your body refinement technique and I'll spare your life. If you don't blame us for snatching it." Only then did Wang Daoyuan understand that he had taken a fancy to his cultivation method. However, the 2 of them were only mid-stage Yuanine cultivators. They weren't enough. Your Jinhai sect is a branch of the Imperial Regency. Is there a need for you to snatch a loose cultivator's technique? Besides, the Imperial Regency has always been upright in its conduct for tens of thousands of years. What's wrong? You're starting to attack your allies now? Or are you wearing the Jinhai sect's skin and doing evil? Li Xingzong hurriedly said, "We have no intention of harming Daoyu. We're just doing this for the sake of the sect's inheritance. As long as Dao Yu is willing to hand over your body tempering technique, I guarantee on my honor that we won't make things difficult for you. Wang Daoyuan sneered. Dao Yuli, are you really ignorant of the ways of the world or are you just playing dumb? Which cultivator would hand over their technique so casually? I want your Imperial Regency's doppelganger soul nurturing technique. Are you willing to give it to me? If you're willing to give me the complete doppelganger soul nurturing technique in exchange, I don't mind handing over my body tempering technique. Before he finished speaking, Elder Qi scolded angrily, arrogant brat, how dare a loose cultivator like you covet our sect's inheritance? Then he took out a mid-grade level 5 refined corpse. The refined corpse turned into a cloud of black gas and disappeared in an instant. A moment later, it appeared next to Wang Daoyuan's flying boat. Wang Daoyuan said in surprise, corpse puppet. Elder Qi was a little surprised. A loose cultivator actually knows about corpse puppets? 10 years ago you were still a long way from reaching the mid-stage Yuanying. But now you've already reached the mid-stage Yuanying. The Imperial Regency has been established for tens of thousands of years, and there are very few people like you. For a body refinement technique to have such speed, it seems like your inheritance is not simple. I'm even more interested now. Wang Daoyuan smiled but didn't say anything. He activated his divine power. All the spiritual energy within a radius of 400 miles instantly turned into the fire attribute. Outside the divine power domain, water attribute spiritual energy constantly surged in and turned into the fire attribute. He drew out a wisp of red yang true fire, and the area within a radius of 400 miles instantly turned into a sea of fire. The corpse puppet also had the characteristics of a refined corpse, so it was still extremely afraid of the pure yang qi in the flames. It naturally didn't dare to stay in the sea of fire for too long. It turned into a cloud of black smoke again and wanted to escape. But how could Wang Daoyuan let it do as it wished? He used the vermilion bird fire control technique to control the flames and turn them into a solid wall of fire to trap the refined corpse. Li Xingzong and Elder Qi wanted to make a move, but Wang Daoyuan condensed 2 vermilion bird phantoms again and used the power of the spirit fire to deal with them. This corpse puppet seemed to have been refined not long ago and couldn't withstand the heat. It only lasted for 100 breaths before it turned into a pile of ashes. Some metal materials fell out of the ashes. At the same time, the flying boat under their feet was also burned. After all, this thing wasn't a flying warship. It wasn't slow, but its defense was too weak. Li Xingzong cried out in surprise, "This is a domain divine ability? Wu Daoyu, the two of us had eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. Please forgive us, Daoyu." Wang Daoyuan smiled and said, "If you hand over the clone soul nurturing technique, I can spare the two of you. If you don't hand it over, see if your Yuanying can withstand the burning of this spirit fire." Elder Qi had a look of disdain. "Elderly, this kid is too arrogant. If you hand over the clone soul nurturing technique, you and I will die without a doubt when we go back. Rather than that, might as well take out your life-saving trump card. I don't believe that a divine ability can be strong." Although Elderly was unwilling to become enemies with Wang Daoyuan, he had no choice but to make a move. No one could bear the price of the core inheritance being leaked out. The two people were already surrounded by the sea of fire. They wanted to rush out several times but were blocked by the fire wall. Suddenly, a swift and fierce sword energy broke through the fire wall. A white-robed cultivator holding a silver sword appeared in front of Wang Daoyuan. This cultivator had a fierce killing intent all over his body. His spiritual power fluctuations were also very close to the peak of Yuanying, but there was no trace of life fluctuations. Wang Daoyuan immediately determined that this was a sword cultivator puppet. Although it was not as good as the one in the 7-star secret realm Ziwei Palace, it was not his match with just a divine ability domain. Elder Qi smiled and said, "Now you know how powerful the Zhenhai sect is, right? This sword puppet once killed a late-stage Yuanying cultivator. We underestimated your strength, but no matter how strong you are, you can forget about defeating the sword puppet and the two of us together. Hand over the inheritance obediently, and I'll leave your corpse intact and let your soul go to reincarnation." Chapter 782. Wang Daoyuan's face was full of disdain. "Elderly, you've really given me a difficult problem. How about this? If you leave now, I won't kill you. If you continue to stay here, I'll have no choice but to leave you behind." Elder Qi mocked, "We've all lived for nearly 1,000 years. What kind of tricks have we not seen? Don't use such childish tricks. Hand over the inheritance obediently and we'll save you some trouble." Li Xingzong also persuaded, "Wu Daoyu, listen to my advice. Hand over the inheritance and I'll protect you from death. Although I don't want to fight you, I have to do this for the sect. Wang Daoyuan smiled. Li Daoyu, I appreciate your kind intentions. Don't worry, I'll let your soul reincarnate. Li Xingzong sighed and the sword puppet disappeared instantly. A silver light flew towards Wang Daoyuan like a meteor. Wang Daoyuan took out the sword of origin restoration and countless silver sword qi appeared out of thin air. Li Xingzong and Elder Qi felt the biting cold killing intent and their expressions changed drastically. It was as if someone had put a sword to their necks. With a swing of the sword, Wang Daoyuan and the sword puppet each retreated more than 30 meters with a clang. The sword puppet didn't suffer any losses, but a small crack appeared on the sword in its hand. Once a Dharma artifact was damaged, its power would weaken. If they continued to fight, the sword puppet's power would only become weaker and weaker. This sword puppet is not weak. It's actually able to fight on par with me. Li Xingzong's expression changed drastically. You're the sword cultivator Zhou Ming who sneaked into the Seven Stars Heavenly Palace in the Seven Stars Secret Realm to steal spirit herbs and finally entered the school of the Emperor Star to steal the inheritance? Don't make it sound so bad. What do you mean by steal? My sword cultivation inheritance is of the same origin as the school of the Emperor Star's inheritance. I'm more qualified than others to take the inheritance. It's you who stole it from me. I advised you to leave before, but you refused to listen. Now that I've exposed my identity, I can't let you leave. With that, he used the Azure Dragon life-stealing technique. Within a radius of 400 miles, all living creatures began to lose their life force. As the main targets, Li Xingzong and Elder Qi were greatly affected. As the sword puppet and Wang Daoyuan exchanged blows, the two vermilion bird phantoms continued to condense fire walls to suppress the two. After breaking through to the Yuanying stage, the lesser divine ability had become a divine ability. Its power had increased greatly, but the consumption of divine sense had decreased. Casting 3 spells at the same time consumed his divine sense twice as much as casting 1 spell. With this level of consumption, it wouldn't be a problem even if it lasted for 2 to 4 hours. However, while the two of them were being burned by the spiritual fire, they also had to constantly lose their vitality. They couldn't even hold on for 15 minutes. Wang Daoyuan executed void-splitting sword escape and attacked the sword puppet. He didn't plan to use the Demon Slayer sword to finish it off. The sword puppet was a rare treasure and he wanted to keep it for his own use. It was already very difficult for a puppet to comprehend sword intent. It was impossible for it to become one with the sword. Without becoming one with the sword, as long as the long sword in its hand was destroyed, it wouldn't have much combat power left. After capturing it, he would remove the divided soul in the puppet's soul and add a new long sword to it. It could still continue to exert the strength of a late-stage Yuanying. After getting close, Wang Daoyuan kept attacking with his sword, aiming at the long sword in the sword puppet's hand. 30 breaths later, a few cracking sounds were heard, and the sword in the sword puppet's hand shattered into several pieces. Without the sword puppet could only exert 30% of its strength. Wang Daoyuan used the black tortoise purgatory to envelop the entire sword puppet and put it into the interspatial ring. He walked to Li Xingzong and Elder Qi with the sword and smiled. Now it's your turn to make a choice. Do you want to hand over the inheritance or die? Li Xingzong sighed and said, I was greedy and went against the teachings of the previous generations of patriarchs. You deserve to have your soul scattered, but if you want to get the inheritance out of my mouth, you're dreaming. Li Daoyu, there's no need to be so agitated. Actually, I'm also a disciple of the Imperial Regency. Back then, when the controlling spirit sect was destroyed, a Foundation establishment disciple escaped. I received his inheritance and cultivated a part of it. I'm also a disciple of the Imperial Regency. If you give me the inheritance, it won't be considered an outsider. Li Xingzong replied, when the Imperial Regency was destroyed, the disciples fled everywhere. There are countless cultivators who receive the inheritance of the Imperial Regency. Even the Seven Stars Alliance has many inheritances. Are they all disciples of the Imperial Regency? If I give you the inheritance, I'll be making enemies for the sect. The two of us are no match for you. If you want to kill us, do as you please. You formed your nascent soul in the Seven-Star Secret Realm only 20 years ago. With such a cultivation speed, you can be considered a peerless genius. Why do you have to lower yourself to bicker with a prisoner like me? Seeing that he would rather die than speak, Wang Daoyuan didn't force him. You didn't want to kill me before. If I let your soul die, I'll be too immoral. It's related to my safety, so I can't let you go. Take back the soul fragment in the sword puppet. I'll only destroy your Yuanying and let your soul reincarnate. If he forcefully took out the soul fragment, it might damage the puppet's soul and affect its function. It was safer to let its master take it out personally. Li Xingzong's face showed a glimmer of hope. Even if he couldn't keep his life, he didn't want his soul to die. He nodded. I refined this puppet myself. It's not considered betraying the sect. Wang Daoyuan took out the sword puppet and dispersed the black tortoise purgatory. With their abilities they couldn't play any tricks. Li Xingzong didn't play any tricks. He took out a gray ball from the puppet and fused it into his body. There's no need for Daoyu to do anything. I'll disintegrate myself. He dispersed his protective qi and allowed the red sun primordial fire to burn him. Soon his body was reduced to ashes. The Yuanying was exposed with a bitter smile on his face. Wang Daoyuan immediately dispersed the red sun primordial fire around him. If he let it burn him, his soul would really be destroyed. Then the Yuanying collapsed, and an extremely dim purple-gold figure appeared. It was his soul. The soul quickly turned into a wisp of green smoke and dissipated with the wind. The soul returned to the netherworld, the body turned to ashes, and the 1,000 years of cultivation returned to heaven and earth. This situation didn't mean that the soul would be destroyed. Li Xingzong didn't walk the path of ghost cultivators, so he didn't suffer any attacks that targeted his soul. No matter how weak his soul was, it wouldn't be destroyed. Legend said that this wisp of green smoke would float to the netherworld and condense into a soul there to enter reincarnation. Wang Daoyuan tidied his clothes and solemnly cupped his hands at the green smoke. Farewell, Daoyu. Li Xingzong's interspatial ring wasn't destroyed, so Wang Daoyuan put it away. He turned to look at Elder Qi and asked with a smile, do you want your soul to be destroyed, or do you want to hand over the inheritance and enter reincarnation like Daoyu? His smile was very kind, as if he was really asking for Elder Qi's opinion. However, in Elder Qi's eyes, this smile was the most terrifying thing in the world. He pretended to be tough and cursed. Shameless brat, you want my sect's inheritance? Wishful thinking. Although Wang Daoyuan was much younger than him, the people he had seen were not few. When Li Xingzong forced him to hand over the inheritance, Li Xingzong meant to let him go if he handed over the inheritance. However, this guy wanted to refine him into a corpse puppet. At most, he would let his soul go. Now, he was only pretending to be like Li Xingzong. He thought that being tough would make Elder Qi think more highly of him and raise the price at the same time. This kind of person was extremely selfish. Most selfish people were extremely greedy for life and afraid of death. His usual ferocious look was just to cover up his cowardice. As long as the threat was big enough, he would sell everything. It was easy to deal with this kind of person. First, let him despair, then give him a chance to live. He would give him whatever he wanted. Wang Daoyuan gathered all the fire spiritual energy within the range of his divine ability to his side. Since you don't want to make a decision, I'll extract your soul and refine it. Let's see how long you can last. In the end, you can't escape and your soul will be destroyed. You didn't even leave your soul behind. Does the survival of the sect have anything to do with you? Chapter 783. Hearing this, Elder Qi's expression changed. He seemed to be thinking about something. As expected, this kind of person's mind was extremely unstable. He probed, if I hand over the inheritance, can you let me live? Wang Daoyuan sneered. When you wanted to steal my inheritance, were you planning to let me live? Now you only have two choices. Either you suffer the pain of having your soul extracted and destroyed, or you obediently hand over the inheritance and disintegrate like Elder Li. As far as I know, cultivators at the Yuanying level and above will carry the legacy of this life with them in their next life. Most of them are extremely talented. If you can cultivate to the Yuanying level again, you will have a chance to awaken your past life's memories. Your cultivation talent isn't very good. You're already 1,000 years old and you're only at the mid-stage Yuanying level. Your chances of reaching the soul formation stage aren't high. It's not a big deal to give it up. You might as well cultivate again. Maybe you'll have a chance to reach the soul formation stage. If you force me to do it and damage my soul, I won't have these benefits when I reincarnate. It was precisely because of these benefits that for a nascent soul cultivator, being able to die by using a corpse was considered a rather honorable death. Elder Qi struggled for a long time before saying, fine, I can tell you everything you want to know. But you have to swear an oath. You can't go back on your word. What a joke. I don't have any grudges with you. Why do I have to destroy your soul? By the time you reincarnate and reach the Yuanying level and awaken your memories, I'll probably be at the soul formation stage. Why would I be afraid of a Yuanying cultivator? I heard that destroying a person's soul will also damage their luck. I'm not a fool. Why would I damage my own luck to destroy your soul? As for swearing, I don't have the habit of being coerced. I definitely won't swear an oath for a prisoner. As long as he admitted defeat once, it would be difficult for him to be tough again. Elder Qi had already planned to compromise, so he naturally didn't dare to insist on swearing an oath. Wang Daoyuan gave him a blank beast skin book. These beast skins were refined from killing demon beasts while drifting on the sea. Record down all the legacies related to the doppelganger soul nurturing technique. Don't play tricks with me. All these years, I've collected quite a few legacies related to the doppelganger soul nurturing technique. Whether it's real or fake, I can tell at a glance. Elder Qi didn't reply and just focused on inscribing the doppelganger soul nurturing technique. Wang Daoyuan used the black tortoise purgatory to wrap him up and retracted his skill. He summoned the flying boat and continued to fly east with Elder Qi. A day later, Elder Qi completed the engraving. A 3-inch thick animal skin book was almost filled to the brim. He handed the beast skin book to Wang Daoyuan. This technique is the core of the Imperial Regency. I've only seen the Yuanying period. As for the content of the soul formation stage, I really don't know. From Qi refinement to nascent soul realm, everything is here. Wang Daoyuan smiled. It doesn't matter. As long as it's in the Yuanying stage, it's fine. There's no difference between the soul formation stage and the Yuanying stage. If you know the Yuanying stage technique, it won't be too difficult to deduce the soul formation stage technique. Wait for me to comprehend the content. If there's no problem, I'll let you go. If there's a problem, you know the consequences. Elder Qi nodded profusely, and Wang Daoyuan flipped through the entire book. Cultivators had a photographic memory and memorized the content after reading it once. After reading it, he closed his eyes and rested. It looked like he was trying to cultivate. In fact, he was controlling the clone in the space of the spiritual pearl to cultivate the doppelganger soul nurturing technique of the golden core stage. This technique was called the doppelganger soul nurturing technique. At first, it was just a spiritual consciousness cultivation technique. When he killed the evil cultivator back then, he obtained the soul-devouring soul nurturing technique, which could only be cultivated to the golden core stage. After countless Yuanying and soul formation stage cultivators improved it, it became a complete Yuanying technique. Not only was there a spiritual consciousness cultivation technique, but there was also a spiritual energy and blood cultivation technique. The name didn't change much. The entire technique was still focused on spiritual consciousness cultivation. It was just that the method of refining the clone was much more advanced. He didn't need to cut his own soul. Instead, he needed to extract a strand of his soul like how he made a soul lamp. This way the soul wouldn't be permanently damaged and it would slowly recover. Then he would use the power of his spiritual consciousness and purine qi to nurture a strand of his soul. He would gradually strengthen it and then merge it with the clone. Merging it with the clone didn't require any serious damage to the clone's soul. He only needed to use a secret technique to merge the nurtured soul into the original soul of the clone. The original soul of the clone would continue to nourish the original soul. In this way, the clone's soul wouldn't be severely damaged. There wouldn't be too many problems in cultivation and other aspects. It was just that the initial merging of the soul was too little and couldn't completely suppress the clone's consciousness. When the soul gradually grew to 1% of the original soul, the clone's consciousness would completely disappear. The restriction of the total number of soul fragments not exceeding 1/10 of the original soul still existed. If this restriction was exceeded, the clone's consciousness wouldn't be suppressed. If the soul fragments were retrieved and merged with the original soul, it could indeed make up for the loss of one's soul and heal soul injuries. However, the higher one's cultivation level, the more difficult it was to heal soul injuries. Extracting a strand of soul and nurturing a component soul wasn't something that could be done casually. At the very least, one had to be at the Violet Palace realm. There was also a huge flaw in refining a clone. It couldn't be used against cultivators at the Yuanying realm and above. This was because a Yuanying cultivator's soul had already merged with their blood, and true essence. A soul fragment couldn't invade their soul at all. If one wanted to refine a clone, they had to start with cultivators at the Yuanying realm and below. Because these cultivators' souls weren't severely damaged, they could still break through to the Yuanying realm. However, it wasn't worth the effort to cultivate a clone to the Yuanying realm. With such resources, it was better to cultivate the sect's disciples. Therefore, Yuanying cultivators rarely used living people to refine clones. Instead, they used demon beasts to refine clones. To refine a clone, the soul fragment had to be merged with the soul fragment without severely damaging the clone's soul. There had to be a method to attack the soul fragment and make the clone lose its ability to resist. At the same time, it had to prevent the opponent's soul from being severely damaged. This cultivation technique also came with a divine sense attack technique called the White Tiger Soul Subduing Roar. It imitated the roar of the divine white tiger and intimidated the opponent's soul. It was similar to Wang Daoyuan's self-created Tiger Soul Subduing Roar technique. However, this technique was much more advanced and powerful. It could make the soul enter a state of unconsciousness. This cultivation technique came with many secret techniques, but they were all related to the soul. Among them were methods to refine puppets and corpses, as well as insights on how to control them. There were also many divine sense secret techniques that could threaten Yuanian cultivators. For example, soul extraction and soul refinement, which could be used against Yuanian cultivators. The clone in the space of the soul pearl tried to use the complete doppelganger soul nurturing technique. He used a wisp of his soul to cultivate a soul fragment. His clone's soul had been severely damaged. It was impossible to cultivate the doppelganger soul nurturing technique. However, it was still possible to test its authenticity. Wang Daoyuan's main body was carefully comprehending the Yuanian stage cultivation technique of the doppelganger soul nurturing technique. After half a day, the clone was barely able to cultivate the embryonic form of a soul fragment. However, it wasn't very stable. This meant that there weren't any major problems with the Yuanian stage and below. He had a few Yuanian cultivation techniques to refer to. Naturally, he knew what was good for him. The contents of the Yuanian stage cultivation technique of the doppelganger soul nurturing technique could withstand scrutiny. It was obvious that this was the result of countless generations of deductions. No one would waste a huge amount of manpower and resources to deduce a wrong cultivation technique to fool others. Even if there were some problems, it wouldn't be a big deal. He wouldn't cultivate this cultivation technique directly after obtaining it. Instead, he would use it to improve his own cultivation technique. Wang Daoyuan opened his eyes and smiled. Daoyu didn't fool me. There are no problems with this cultivation technique. I can release your corpse, but before that, I want to ask you a question. The Imperial Regency was so powerful back then. How did it fall? There are many rumors in the outside world, but they are all vague. Your Xinhai sect is a branch of the Imperial Regency. You should know a lot of inside information, right? You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.